Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who have lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, to create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created, this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our country.
What up, everybody? Welcome to MKCanada. How's it going? So what do you think about Andrew Tate? Should I just jump with that? Because, like, I kind of have a question about that. I've been looking at, like, this Andrew Tate. Is he evil? Is he not evil? I'm pretty convinced he's not, like, God. You know, I think a lot of people thought he was, like, a hero for a while, which is weird. Ryan, are you frozen, Ryan? I asked about Andrew Tate, and he literally just froze. He was like, that's it. I can't even. We'll see. Wait. Get in there. Go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead, Kurt. You got stuff to say. You got words.
Well, this was, I think, as far as this entire week, like, well, he's been all over the news. I think this is one thing that I've paid a little bit of attention to. And I think it's really interesting because I took in some time. I looked.
Ryan, you just got cut off by the Googleplex. They were like, whatever he's about to say about Tate, we're just going to freeze his whole system. That's amazing. Sorry. But Kurt, keep going.
So with Andrew Tate, I watched a segment of the Piers Morgan debate, or is the interview, and that was kind of interesting. And I think I got a decent insight onto who he actually is. And I think
he's not technically Canadian, but he's an American He's British, American British, and I think that should count, really. You know, if you think about it.
Now, I think part of the internet really wants someone to worship, you know, and so like there's a lot of Tate fanboys, I would say. And I don't know. I think, yes, there is a layer of media bias that's hard to see past. And you really, anymore, you have to take really in-depth looks to see how a person actually is. And so a lot of what he says, I personally don't find a lot of what he says offensive. But there's also an aspect where I think if you really get down to the core of a lot of his beliefs, I think a lot of them are a little bit like, oh, it doesn't seem like he is a good person.
Well, the more you go on the internet, you'll find these like crazy, like fanatical internet trolls, like this Ryan Stone character who just like, they just nonstop, incessantly. It's like they're in love with him. They just focus on Andrew Tate. Come on. All right. Ryan does look right now like he's like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in court being held silent. Go ahead, Ryan. Words.
I put a link in the private chat. Can we start with that?
Oh my god!
Put that on there for me.
That's why he was quiet. He's like, I've got this kill move.
I just want to start it off with some context here.
All right.
So you guys know.
Do you need audio? Do you want me to put the audio on?
Yeah, it needs audio too.
Oh dear God. Okay, 1 second. I gotta set that up. Talk about it while I set my audio up for this. It takes me a second.
There was this guy on Twitter called Cultibra. He's big about money and hustling and G's and all this stuff. And Tate bragged about, he went on some coke bender and started talking crap about Tate. And Tate bragged about his war room of excellence. He sent a bunch of guys to the guy's house to harass him and his family. To which I told my guys, like, I know wrestling promos. This is a wrestling promo. He absolutely didn't. He went on a podcast with Rich Cooper, a good buddy of mine. and somebody sent a $5 super chat asking about it, and this was his response. Like, Ryan said that you didn't do this.
Okay,
I thought you were gonna play it.
I'm trying real hard.
Ian, what do not Ryan Stone? I see he's the most important guy in the world. Ryan Stone. Give a about Ryan Stone. Me and him come back and forth. Yeah. Ryan Stone does not pass the 6-foot test. He's not even a man. So I don't give a Ryan Stone.
So, shameless plug for my podcast. I found apparently he did this for like 40 minutes. It took me forever. Somebody finally gave me a timestamp. Yep. I thought it was awesome. Like Ric Flair talking to you, except for not as good. When he was still just the small guy selling Forex courses, we kind of engaged with him a bit. He was using some of the guys I work with to kind of get some clout, and it was all it's all BS. Look, you guys have not watched enough wrestling promos. You don't understand kayfabe. None of this stuff is true that you hear on the media. None of this. Guys are treating him like he's the reclamation of masculinity and that the Matrix is coming after him. And the other side is treating him like, oh my God, woman's stealing this, and he's the worst man ever, and he joined. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
I think
it's internet grifting.
He's been an internet grifter for the longest time. His original one, and this is where I first was like, I'm not working with you again, and this is where our whole beef kind of started. He had a Forex thing where you'd pay him like £1,000 or whatever, and then he would tell you a bunch of trades to make, and you can make a bunch of money. And so as soon as the beef started, everybody started sending me this material about how
did you do that? You send £1,000 to Andrew Tate?
No, I'm not.
Oh, I was like, what the hell, Ryan?
But yeah, but it was funny because everybody started sending me all this stuff. I was basically scamming him out of money. One guy actually did the math, for some reason smart enough to do math, and he said, if I had done the trades by flipping a coin, like mathematically, it's impossible to get as many trades wrong as following his advice did. And so everybody there was pissed. And so he moved on from that. And he has a bunch of other low-level scams. I'm not going to detail them all out, but it's always been his thing, low-level hustler. And he left the UK for some reason. And in Dubai, I think it is, that's where they have their version of the SEC trying to find him for this Forex thing. And that's why he moved to Romania, because he had basically killed all of his goodwill with the authorities. It's also partially the reason why he's never going to be in the States again.
Yeah, Romanian girls are trouble. From all my experience.
Well, he went down there and he invited a bunch of girls to come hang with him, and he had them work as cam girls for him. He said, "How was he?"
He did.
7 girls came down, and 5 said no, but 2 stuck around. And so his big claim to fame was Chatterbait
algorithm.
No. Well, there's that too. Fuck, where do we even start? Yeah. So he was doing the cam girl thing, and he's like, I noticed that guys will pay like $1 a minute for the cam girls on Chatterbait, but if the girls talk to him, it's like $10 a minute. So his plan,
which is ironic,
his
right?
Genius plan was to be a trap online, and you dance girls, and I'll talk to them. Me and my brother will chat to them because we know what guys like. So they were basically like I said, traps, which was kind of weird. It's a little bit like, it's not that there's anything wrong with it. I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? So they were doing that scam for a while, but then it dried up because OnlyFans started taking all their money. Girls became solo entrepreneurs. And then he sold his Gumroad course, how to be a G pimp. And he started telling guys how to kidnap girls and how to do this and the business plan. And it was just basically, it was just like another minor grift and whatever. I don't know about the compound thing. I'm friends with guys that are actually friends with him, Justin Waller and Sterling Cooper. They vouch for him, and I trust those guys. So I'm not even going to get into that because I don't know. I'll let the courts figure that out. And I'm not going to trust what I see online. But I do know that much, and I do know it's like associating with him professionally was just a stupid idea. But a lot of guys started doing it because he talked a lot of good game, and he was telling everybody that you're going to be a big G too, which is funny now because during this whole arrest, they've been seizing assets. So all these people that were carrying water for him, and you want to know why they're cheering him on now? It's not because want to reclaim masculinity, get the caveman. Like, no, it's because their incomes are tied to his success. They need him to be out of jail and free because then they can keep on with this grift. Hustlers University has always been just like a clubhouse for lonely men. It's no different than Jack Murphy's Liminal Order or any of that crap. It's just come on into the He-Man Woman Haters Club. We'll talk about working out and call each other bro for 10 hours. It's just a thing for lonely men, and they charge insane rates. Now, here's the thing.
Kind of like the women's club. Yeah, I hear you. The book
I get it. There's like, obviously, a lot of guys are lonely, so they want a club. But,
and a lot of women have been hard on men, so they need to have some support groups.
I'm not even going to get into like the real issues here, because I think it does them a disservice to associate him with Tater Boys here.
All right.
But
Hater boys.
so there was like a bunch of guys, like what's his name? Dino. I call him Dino Bravo, but that's not his name. It's Bobby Dino. Just got out of prison, made himself an internet brand saying, I just got out of prison, work with me. It's like for larceny or something. I don't think it was anything violent. But it was basically the whole clubhouse was run like rednecks with money. Like people are starting fights in there and he's trying to bounce people and they're admitting to doing cool crimes like they're real G's. And the whole thing was just cringe. But anyway, so that's where the Culty Bra guy, I guess he was on like a coke bender one day. He started talking some shit about him. And then he did the thing where he sent all these rednecks to his house. I don't think he did. I think he just bragged about it because I didn't think anybody is stupid enough to admit to doing a crime like that. Like you don't send somebody to intimidate at people's house. That's a felony. And on top of that, Colorado, where they did it, is an open carry state. So either he's stupid and the audience that's following him is even stupider, or they made it all up for clout. So I'm doing benefit of the doubt, made it all up for clout. And that's kind of where he started vocally doing this. He harassed me and my wife there for a bit too, but I just leaned into it. I'm like, whatever, no attention's bad attention. I'm gladly on the side of fuck this guy. And
Jordan from the Divulgence podcast has made it. What's up, Jordan?
So beside him, there's this other idiot called Joe Lampton, which is literally the mini me to Dr. Evil. It's like a Romanian manlet, and he's getting talked up in this too. And the authorities are going after him and his income and all this shit.
Who's the manlet?
But it has nothing to like. He didn't get canceled because of I spread the word to the truth. He got canceled because he was running an MLM scheme with this. So for all those guys in Hustler University, their big way of earning income was he would send video promos out and he'd say, all of you guys make TikTok channels and YouTube channels and post this for me. And that's why on TikTok for like a 3-month period, you couldn't scroll 3 things without another Tate fanboy account talking about the same stupid shit. And so YouTube and TikTok and all of them didn't like how he was gaming the algorithm to become so notorious. And that's why they blocked him off of all this stuff. Now, I don't know if they actually did cancel his Stripe account or not. I do know this, though. Hustlers University had something like 50,000 members paying or 80,000 members, $50 a month. It was like $9 million a month in revenue. And he had to pay about 4.5 of that to payouts for the guys saying all this stuff.
Right.
Now, if you say my Stripe got canceled, I can't afford to pay anybody. How many months is it until people stop trusting that it'll eventually get turned back on? That's 4.5 extra million a month with I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. Fucking brilliant. Hope you don't mind if I'm swearing here, but this guy is just like...
You made up for it with the Popeye movie reference. I'll take it.
Fair enough. Now, and everybody seems to think I have some personal beef with him. It's not that. It's it's professional beef, first off. He's in... No, Popeye's
I'll gladly
great.
pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. I'll shut
He's
in
basically
Malta.
I'm in the space where we're trying to do some work to get guys to get their shit together. It's kind of like clean your room, but not quite so passive.
It's wash your
Something actually
penis.
useful.
It's circumcise yourself, actually. Andrew Tate's gone further. Think about it.
Just
He's
talks.
Islam
Now, the
now.
Islam thing was because he was getting into a bit of trouble because he had a casino from his dad in Romania. Now, Romania, Slavic, casino, money laundering, Russia, Ukraine. Obviously, there's a reason that he wants to move to Dubai and he joined Islam because that gets all of the misogyny shit off his back. He doesn't really join Islam. I got a friend who shows me his stuff from Saudi. He's from Saudi Arabia. He's actually in Islam. His dad was a scholar and shit.
Right.
And he basically makes a big joke out of pointing out all the ways that he's basically bastardizing Islam. Like, you're not supposed to do this.
But that's cool for Canada and the West, right? Because he's making a new kind of Islam that's a cooler, sexier MTV Islam. Kind of like Christianity's been bastardized.
He's just lying about it too. And it's fine. Make your money, do your promo thing. It's just the weirdest thing that in 2022, I'm the guy saying, you guys realize wrestling's not real, right? And then
I haven't seen a shirt like that since wrestling. Are you kidding me? This is great.
I don't care about that. Yeah, he's tall, he kickboxes, he's in shape, he wears metrosexual clothes. I can get behind that. He's awesome.
Tall in an awkward way, but that's okay.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter. And that's why it kind of bothers me because there's a lot of anti-Tate guys out there, but they're this weird Weiss shit where they're just they're mad at a guy because he has sex or they're mad at a guy because he has money. I'm like, that's the 18th thing that you could hate about him if you really had to pick something. For me,
having sex and having money aren't his problems. I mean, he was a dick way before that. That's kind of
it's not even he's him personally. It's whatever. He's just a normal guy, and to be anybody who knows him personally will talk to him about an amicable, wonderful person. It's all of the grifty, shady, borderline criminal bullshit, which we may or may not find out is or is not criminal.
I like
On
what
some
you're saying.
level,
It's Occam's razor instead of the conspiracy. For me, I was like, he's in Romania. He's probably oil trafficking or something like that.
No,
yeah.
it's the casino. That's how you launder
Yeah.
money. That's how you do that is with
Online
a casino.
casinos.
Even in
Right.
China, that's how they get money out. And the weirdest thing is, none of this is a secret. Everybody has known about this since the very beginning. I'm not speaking some like esoteric knowledge that I personally
Right.
know. It's just
I
everybody
just was
who's been
thinking
around
it
knows
it
this
had to
stuff.
be a bigger deal than that. But no, this is enough because there's
No,
enough
that's
key
it.
players, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with the human trafficking. I don't know if that stuff's true. To be fair, I kind of doubt it.
Yeah. it's
I
just
really
Romania.
do, because Romania isn't it part of the EU?
Romania is hardcore. Romania is a really hardcore state. Romania is, they were the Tijuana for Rome. So a lot of Roman soldier, kind of culture there, and they don't speak Slavic. They speak a Latin kind of language, and they are like hyper police state in a lot of ways.
Yeah, fair enough. So this is speculation on my part, but I have a feeling the Candace Owens, the Mike Cernoviches, the Paul Joseph Watsons, the Peterson daughter, I have a feeling, that his cam girl stuff, he's probably done some like honeypotting, and I bet you he has some dirt on a lot of people. And I have a feeling that's why a lot of these really public conservative grifters are going to bat for him, because their success is riding on him not spilling the beans. Now, that's speculation. I don't know if it's true, but I suspect it is true. That's the only way it would make sense, because Cernovich will turn on you in a dime if he thinks he can make a buck off of it. And there's no right now that Cernovich is doing well on the tater tot train. No way in hell.
I mean, I did. Okay, so none of my business. And as a friend, I shouldn't be talking about it. But I do remember she said like a while ago that she recently went to Romania to visit Andrew Tate, like for like a week or for a few days or something like that.
And then nothing happened. And it's like,
but what you just said makes the most sense.
Okay,
well, maybe something happened. Like, there's a whole lot of speculation. Maybe it is he didn't know how popular she was, and he tried to recruit her for the webcamming thing.
Right.
Maybe something
this is
did
some
happen.
pretty serious
She was married
speculation,
at the time, and the dad was at home with the kid. But I mean, even if nothing happened, it's like, that's not a good look. Like, if you're a mom with a kid and a husband, you don't go riding off to some guy who claims to be a pimp. It's not a good look.
Dude,
And
Popeye
a lot of
was
guys
a
are
great
kind
movie.
of already annoyed with Michaela Peterson kind of wearing her dad's popularity as a skin suit. So, I mean, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other, but I get the hate. I get it. But this whole thing is a fucking mess. And this is what drives me nuts, because I'm part of like the red pill space, and these goddamn clowns are now the cheerleaders, and we have like the worst cheerleaders ever. Like, I feel like a Democrat when Joe Biden got in charge. They're like, shit. Now we got him and the Ukrainian guy selling things, or like when a
Holy
Republican
cow.
sees like Trump get in charge, like, the ones that were old rhinos, now they're like, I can't believe it's Trump embarrassing us. It's like that, only like 20 times worse.
Yeah, I mean,
No offense to anybody here who's a Biden or Trump fan. I wanted.
That is the thing about the red space. The red space is, it's like you said earlier, it's full of emasculated men who want to be remasculated. But Jim Kincaid from Team Rabbit Hole is here, and I got really excited. I just wanted to be like, guys.
Yeah. Anyways, I would rant about this for an hour, and I don't want to, because I'm frankly, other than the clout that I can get, because I got a book I got to shill, I try not to, because I really don't like the tater tots in my mentions just calling me a beta male 20 hours a day.
I will say,
like, you covered it pretty hard. I just want to quickly say you covered it pretty hard. Is the idea of what men want to be, and so someone's offering something they can be.
That's
I'll
lost,
shut up.
boys.
Kurt, you go ahead.
Sorry. Like with Tate, and I think at some point your actions are inseparable from your character as a person. So if he's doing awful things to the internet, I think it's okay to, not just on the internet, but in person. You can't fully separate the persona. You choose to put up a persona. So like if he's doing asshole things, like he's probably an asshole. Like I think you were maybe giving him too much credit on a person of like, oh yeah, his friends say he's a good guy, but he does.
I just don't care if he's an asshole. Frankly, that's whatever. I'm an asshole. I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think being an asshole and being successful are inextricably linked. Please, someone in anthropology prove me wrong, because like that's something I've found to be the case. Like my favorite people, And I remember I had a girlfriend who came over one time, and I had this book written about Steve Jobs by his ex-girlfriend, who he refused to acknowledge the child of. And she like broke up with me. And she's like, dude, if you think Steve Jobs is a hero, I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm just saying, like, being a psychotic sociopath or a psychopath, seem to be parts of driven people's lifestyles. You know what I mean? Is that a horrible thing to say? I mean,
madness is required for greatness.
Well, that's the system we've set up. I think we could easily set up a different system where psychopaths don't rise to the top. But like,
I don't even say psychopaths. Just you can't be meek and successful. It's just too competitive up top. I think asshole is built into the system. I agree with Andres.
Being an asshole.
But I agree though. If you are right, like if you could figure out a system, that would be great. I'm just jaded.
No, I think if you got like the top 100 CEOs, like I think if you interviewed all of them, like, well, some of them would reflect the company to a certain degree, but I think there would be some generally just like good, hardworking people in that class, and a lot of them just aren't. I think it becomes, it becomes weighted. If you compare those people to the average population, you're going to find a lot of narcissistic behavior.
But I mean, you got a problem there. So you got people that are working too hard because they think working smart is the same as working hard. It's not. So trying to get more work done for less work, get more accomplished with less work is part of being a psychopath. Like whatever it takes.
Efficiency is how you make money too. Everything's got to be scalable, and
that money is only an incentive for the evolution of the human condition. Because the idea, like for instance, with Apple or with Google, like you can point out all these atrocities, and they're Epstein level atrocities. Often they are the Epstein atrocities, not always, but sometimes. But then you can say, on the other hand, look at all the medical research that was accomplished in World War II about Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or something, right? There's always
further back than that. What about the East India Company, Dutch or British? They did some amazing things, but
people used to be carrying salt bags everywhere, right? And now there are trains. I mean, granted, people are still carrying salt bags because of it, but I don't know. I mean, I kind of wonder about that. The idea that humanity is somehow destined to be run by psychopaths, because in the ruthless efficiency, there's also a lot of waste there, and people, it's kind of like in Rome, people could live off the bread because they conquered so many peoples. They had free bread.
It's in your best interest to follow. And I think Simon Sinek talks about that, where the psychopaths tended to lead the tribe because they're the ones willing to take the biggest risks. But there's also supposed to be like a synergetic thing where they take care of the, I don't want to use beta males, but you know what I mean? Like the subordinate men. So he gets first cut of meat, he gets first choice to wives, but everybody survives. And so it's like, he's an asshole, but he's our asshole. That's why people latch on to personalities like him or like Trump. Of course, with the guys, they're 18-year-olds that don't have a father or a male role model in their life. So this is the first guy that's talked to them in a way that appreciates their pain. So of course they're going to latch on to it.
Do you think it's weird that we say
it's not calibrated at all?
I think we've defeated nature to such a crazy degree in terms of like making it past birth and not dying of disease, having a life expectancy of 70, 80 years. That's a lot to think about. We theoretically should feel a sense of accomplishment, but I don't think we do. Yeah, we don't. It's like, oh, what did we do all that work for? And
do you think that it's funny that we're pretending that we're alphas? And a lot of time, this whole thing with the usage of the terms alphas and betas, like we are in Brave New World already, and it's completely acceptable.
You want to rant? Thank you for pulling this up. This is a rant. I hate this nonsense. This is some stupid marketing BS. Where they talk about alpha, betas, gammas, Vox Day. Christian acceleration has started this stuff where he thinks of men the way botanists look at insects, and it drives me nuts. Men don't, and it's because of some stupid study with wolves where there's like this. Humans are more like bonobos. Like we don't have physiological changes like gorillas do. And so when Red Pill talked about alpha and beta, it had nothing to do with like goodness or badness, which is how most people use it. You were saying bonobo
instead of chimp too, because like we do jerk off at each other.
Defined the term fairly well back in 2012. In the Red Pill perspective, the manosphere perspective, alpha was stuff that was sexually desirable, and beta was stuff that was relational comfort. That was it. So if it got you into bed with a woman, they would consider that trait or that quality or that action or those words. Those were considered alpha. And if it was something that kept a wife around and wanted to have kids with you, that would be beta. And it was a great way to encapsulate male behavior. And then some marketing artard took these and like, hey, if I just replace godliness and evil, because these guys are all secular now, and I just replace it with alpha and beta, I can swindle their marketing too. And it's taken off like hotcakes. And it drives me nuts. And that's sigma and gammas is narcissistic personality disorder. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is Fox Day stuff. Epsilon. I don't even know who made that up, but this is literally how the telephone game works in the sphere. Is somebody will come up with something useful, and then some idiot with autism who wants to make themselves sound cool.
Aldous Huxley is the idiot who made that up. Sorry.
Fair enough. Grabs it, turns the autism up to 12, and then adds more to it, and everybody tries to one up it until you got this goofy shit. Like it's a great example. Black pill guys. Remember that whole if you're not 6 feet tall, women don't love you. Well, now it's like 6 foot. You have to be 6'8". It's like, talk about just like tard inflation, man.
Dude,
and I don't.
How
mean
many
to cuss
dudes
so
do you
much on
know
your
that ever
ass.
had those like foot lift things? What are those
Oh
called?
yeah, and they're getting leg surgeries and they're getting jaw surgeries. It's like this weird. And then in the same corner, they get mad at people for gender reassignment surgery. And it's like, bro, you're basically doing face pulls to make your jawline bigger and getting surgery for your chin. You have no right to judge.
Interesting. Randomly earlier today, I posted on my Facebook. I don't know why, but like I woke up and the first thought I had was the nail that sticks out gets hammered, right? Which is that old Japanese
Oh, that's
saying.
so Canadian.
But it's on so many levels, right? So let's say you're at height to be in war, so you're the first to be drafted, and so you must have a bunch of epsilons who were never drafted because their ancestors were never so tall to be shot and to be picked. You know what I mean? So it seems like we have these recent wars which have decidedly removed from the population these super tall characters anyway, except for ones that are like Andrew Tate, which kind of seem uncoordinated and interested in learning coordination, so they would get into acting or whatever you call it now, wrestling, right? I mean, wrestling.
I just don't think of people like a botanist. For me, and that's the whole point. It's never been about classifying people into the winners and the losers and the sociopaths.
I think it's
about
human potential. I love Sims 4.
Potential.
You know, like you can
It's
figure
like
out what you can do with them.
Yeah, and everybody loves it. Talking about making a podcast, writing a book, making music. Everybody can get better. Everybody can give tips and tricks. Everybody can learn a skill. For some reason, when it comes to sex, all of a sudden we have to pretend like it's magic and nobody knows what's going on and you're just born with it or you don't have it. And it's like, no.
I find the sex phenomenon, like, honestly, what's that guy, oh God, any of those. Just any of the, I feel like I could do that. I could make so much money teaching people how to be pickup artists or something like that.
Yeah, but would you be any good at it?
I think I would, because I understand the number one most important thing is that humans are lonely.
No, there's already a playbook for this.
Humans are completely alone, are the most lonely, desperate creatures on the earth.
Okay, if you wanted
and
to
they're more lonely than they've ever been before.
Some of those guys, you absolutely could. Then just read a little bit of Rollo Tomasi.
I wouldn't want to do it though. It's the problem. Is like I would want to help people. I'd want my friends to understand that everybody's lonely and that they can find love very quickly.
That's part of the grift.
It's not even a big deal. Yeah. You should move on beyond that as quickly as possible. Get a dog or something. But yeah, I feel like it's interesting.
There's things you can do, but you're right. You're doing the grifting thing, but you have other things you can do with your time to make money and be happy. Picture the guy who's got nothing else. Like he can't keep a job at a gas station. Of course, that's his best option. Parasocial relationships. Tier 3 Twitch streamer. Dude, what's that chick that wears the horse head in the hot tub streams? Do you think she has like, I'm doing this to get myself through engineering school? No. The only time I ever
worn a horse head was because I loved Eyes Wide Shut, but I still get the point.
Who was it he was supposed to be again? He was supposed to be like a caricature of like Ross Jeffries or something, wasn't it?
I mean,
does anybody remember?
I hate to say it, but you're the expert. Let's see here. Ross Jeffries. Is that the guy? He's the game?
Yeah.
I remember.
Seduction guy.
See, but like you look at a guy who's a speed seduction guy, and there's just, I don't know. There's just something about, it's like, is it in his eyes? Like it looks like he's figuring out the value of your house and he's walking up to your door.
MC Escher from Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, that's part of the grift, right? For a lot of guys, you kind of have to look a little bit nerdy because then it shows that looks don't matter, muscles don't matter, self-improvement doesn't matter. You can just be yourself, but I'll give you some tips and tricks. And that's what, like, Mystery originally put a pretty good system in place. I actually did it back in the 2000s when I was in the Navy because I just didn't have enough time to date. So I needed to learn a system or I was going to be celibate. And he did good and Neil Strauss did good. But then like RSD Tyler and RSD Owen and Ross Jeff and all these guys started doing their thing on it too. And it oversaturated the market. It turned into a clown show. And then
I don't even know what it is. Mystery dating system. Yeah, I don't know.
It's called M3. It's pretty like, and here's the thing. It's originally a pretty decent system. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm like totally.
No. I mean, like, because I've never studied this. And I'm kind of interested in the existence.
Part of the problem was because as a guy, they're like, you know how guys just say, go talk to girls? Well, yeah, you can't. Like, what do I say? So all he did was he put it into three things. There was attraction, rapport, and then seduction, right? So when you want to walk up to a girl and say hello, he gave you what was called an opener. An opener was what you would say to a girl to be able to continue a conversation. And it was like, there was canned scripts and they worked pretty well.
And you had to
Like
like, but don't you have to like size up whether she's like a tester or something
No,
like
no,
that?
no. The whole point is
okay?
just go in. If you have 3
Okay.
seconds, and the idea there is it's teaching you skills. I call it like training wheels for the soul. And so, yeah, the first time you walk up, hey, I have to go back to my friends in a minute. I just want to ask you a question. My buddy thinks it's cheating if you go to a different area code. I think it's not. The idea there is it's a time constraint, so the girls know you're not just going to sabotage, like take over their time and kill the vibe. It's a pointed question that's kind of controversial, and it gets everybody excited, and then you leave in a minute, right? So then you practice this a few times. You see what happens when you open a group and a girl responds favorably. So you eventually start to make your own, like do what normal people do, and they just walk up and say hi and start a conversation. But it's for guys who have no idea where to start. It gave you training wheels to practice. How do you do this? Hey, if you want to break the touch barrier with a girl, because if you're romantically interested, touch her on the arm and see if she's interested back, and then take it from there. Or maybe there's nothing there and you move on. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually that's important. So that's the thing. So many of these people have only ever lived in The Sims. This next generation is going to have been raised in kindergarten wearing masks over their faces, so they have no idea how to intuit.
They need it more than anybody.
This might not be bad, I guess.
Well, and that's the problem though, because you talk to a normal person about this, they get kind of creeped out. They don't know why, but they do, and I get it.
Well, it's because it's called the art of picking up. If it wasn't the art of picking up, and it was the art of human interactivity or something like that.
Exactly. Now, I mean, picture, like you said, these guys, they don't have 20%. Dads.
No, I was kidding.
They're single moms. Their moms got divorced. The kid doesn't have a dad to talk to. He doesn't have an older brother to talk to. His friends are just as clueless. These guys hit 18. They become lonely celibates, and they eventually latch on to Andrew Tate. It's like, here's something, and you go practice. And that's the best part, is they have to go and work on it. They have to go out into, they call it the field. Like, go to a bar, talk to girls. You'll get shot down a lot, but then you learn rejection's not so bad. And then once you get to a certain point, you realize most of the steps you kind of didn't need. They were just there to give you structure so that you could figure it out for yourself. And I thought it was great. I think it did a wonderful work on a lot of people, but that's the problem. It got successful. And when it got successful, every asshole with a Lamborghini decided, I'm getting in on this. And that's how you get the stupid White Claw Power Hour podcast with dudes bringing on OnlyFans chicks and kicking them off the podcast. Shout out to Fresh and Fit for their horse shit.
Well, there's two problems with that whole market that I think have kind of emerged over the past decade. One is that that market has become really insanely grifty. Like, pretty much the end goal of a lot of them is to do kind of what Andrea said, is like, oh, you learn to deal with rejection, and at the end of the rejection, you just realize, like, oh, I'm going to be alone, and that's okay. Why even call it what the fuck you're calling it in the first place? It's not, you're not achieving the original desired end goal of what you said the desired end goal is.
Oh, so absolutely.
That's what the market has kind of not been willing to admit. And part of it is, like, the reason they can't even train people to even be on the market is because, the dating market is no longer existing anymore. And the reason why it's not existing anymore, because we have this hyper connectivity of social media that gives us a constant means of comparison from one person to another. Like, yes, relationships exist, but from a pure observational standpoint, people aren't getting together in the same ways that they've been getting together in the past. Like,
yeah, but humans don't change. Like, we change the systems. Yeah, we're using the telephone versus
people do
Tinder and that. Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, men and women still want the same biological things we've wanted since we were cavemen.
Well, we're having children at a much lower rate than we have in the past. I don't think that's really.
Yeah, but you're worried about children, though. It's just talking about a meetup, maybe some sex, and possibly start a relationship. Like, slow down.
If I
go ahead.
Had to guess, sorry.
Yeah.
I would say even like the whole hookup culture has taken a sort of turn, because I think maybe we're a little bit tired of hookup culture. So I think right now, I think sexual relationships have probably changed a lot over the past 5 years. I think I'm suspicious, but I think that's worth researching.
I knew this old guy. He was always like, when the world really stopped being awesome was when they invented indoor cooling. Because before indoor cooling, things were just amazing. And people were like, women would meet you in the park because they needed a place that was cool to be. And everyone would just go to the park all the time. And when they got indoor cooling, all of a sudden the parks were just for like a couple vagrants would show up at the parks. And that was the end of this old world that he remembered as a kid, right?
Oh yeah, dude, you get it. They said the same thing about TV, the same thing about telephones, the same thing about cell phones, the same thing about smartphones. Same thing about Tinder. The only thing that changes is the tool.
Somebody's microphone is
Still
super
get together.
bouncy. I don't know what that is. That's okay.
Yeah, no, people have had that argument before, and to be honest, like,
You don't
every
think it's
guy
the
I've
same though
seen
when they met in
divorced-
real life though in
and-
the park?
Actually,
know.
all you have to do is go talk to guys who are like in their mid 40s, early 50s. They got divorced. They went out and started dating again. To them, it's no different. If anything, it's easier because
things have
women are
changed.
lonely.
Things
Well,
have changed
now it's the
because there's-
atomization.
contraception has changed everything.
Yeah, that was in the
Capacity
60s, though.
to-
That's almost 100 years ago.
And you
I
could
know,
still
but
make
that
the
was the
argument.
major shift.
Yeah, I
That-
agree.
I
That's
think
why it's
that,
now a
you
buyer's
know,
market for women because they have control of when and where birth happens, and there's no danger to risk, which is anything has freed things up. But then, as a general thing, women's expectations have come higher because now they have access to a lot more men and a lot less risk experiencing it. And
Yeah,
that's
but-
where the whole Pareto principle thing is coming through. And that's generally speaking what the pickup stuff has kind of morphed into with the red pill now is like, okay, the top 20% are getting inordinate success while the bottom 80% are getting a lot less. But
Zeus
as a
over
flip
here.
side of this, people
That
have
could be
become
me.
so bad lately that
That
it's
is
easy.
you, dude.
Yeah, it's
And that's
never
the
been
market.
easier to
It's
get in
that
the
bottom
20%.
80% that doesn't have a chance.
Who doesn't have a
That's
chance?
why. That bottom 80%, if that bottom 80% doesn't have a chance, then that whole market is fraudulent.
Well, that's the
Yeah,
black pill
definition.
guys that say that though. There's totally a chance. Like literally
Yeah.
nobody tries. That's the worst part. Like
Well, I
even
don't think
now,
that. I
That's
think
what
not
that
telling
movie's
you guys
about.
this 'cause
People
I'm
are
just
told they're
guessing.
supposed to play a role, and you don't have to play that role. The ant system is just there because people are too dumb to pick something else for themselves.
and it's the path of least resistance to become like you
right.
know, the black pill MGTOW guy. Like there's
Doctor
effort you have to
says
put in.
don't do that when you say your leg hurts when you hit it. You know, so get out of your town and go to a new town. Start your
Yeah.
life over.
And
if
I'm
you're
not
stuck in
saying
a
it's
rut.
harder now. I'm not saying the expectations are higher, but less people are trying. And so on average, I find, like, I'm not just speaking out of opinions. I've literally experienced this. I've got a couple hundred guys in my Patreon that have been there 5 years. It's kind of had rotations through. And I'm watching guys in their 20s, 30s, 40s. They found out as soon as you start trying, as soon as you put in effort, and as soon as you start making some success, that it's way easier than everybody will let you on to believe. It's because, yeah, girls are bored, girls are lonely. And so sometimes just being able to walk up to somebody and put your phone down and have a conversation is enough to grab them. Maybe just designing your life so you're not online constantly and you don't actually see real people in life is all it takes. And I'm not saying it's like, oh, it's just whatever. Like it's hard, but it's fulfilling. And what else are you going to do with your day, right?
Well, you know, what I've found is that girls, what they actually like, what humans really like, is having goals and going for them and achieving them. And that is the sexiest thing in the world. And when it comes to fucking, there's a lot of things that you can like that you can have good positive traits that'll be attractive. But when it comes to actually being desirable, it's about achievements. It's about having goals, going for
Well,
them.
are you talking
doing-
like one night stand desirable, or are you talking
No.
lifetime husband desirable? 'Cause
That's
they're
the
two
thing.
different things.
Lifetime husband
Completely
desirable. The lifetime husband desirable is obviously the one who achieves goals.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the person who achieves goals also has one night stand attractiveness.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, and that's kind of the
Marriage
thing. You have to
rates are also
understand
lower
that
than
one
they've
leads
ever
to the
been,
other,
and they're
right?
declining very quickly.
someone with alcohol, cocaine, and who's not half ugly, they also have attraction in the one night stand field.
Yeah,
So-
but it's not sustainable over time. Yeah, this is like
Exactly.
the alpha beta. This is all what really this
So
is about. This exact
that's hookup
stuff.
culture. This has been generated. I mean, hookup culture is pretty old, especially with like prostitution and stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually, you know, like the applied on a general scale, that came with contraception. So
But you're not
everything
siloed into one or
shifted
the
there.
other either, right?
There's
Like
a
you
very
can be that
real
party guy who's
thing is-
fun, and then
Sure.
if you find a girl that's worth settling down with, be the guy with goals. You can do both. But
Yeah,
the
yeah.
whole point
Down.
is just being aware of that each path has a different result and a different goal. So if you want to attract a girl, you do the alpha stuff. But
don't
if you
think-
want to keep her after you've attracted her, then you do the beta stuff. If you just do the relationship comfort desirable stuff without any attractive stuff, then you're always going to get shot down because girls want to be attracted.
No, there's a very real phenomenon, and I don't think media wants to explore this topic very much. But right now, I think it's very much a growing phenomenon that there's kind of an inversion point that there's a lot of women that are actually going at the opposite end of the spectrum and going specifically for the low status males. I'm not even saying this as a joke, but it's like some women, I think it's attached to a low self-esteem thing where specifically they go for the guy that doesn't have a job or a car, has an addiction.
It's really fun to try to like guess
that-
the right
the
picture
thing is
for
that
this.
What women seem to like, I mean, is that men have a certain degree of potential, and so when they see a man like that, they basically have someone who's malleable.
There's
they can
nothing
manifest the
objective
potential
about
how
that.
they
You
want.
can't even define it. It's almost as if it's like, what the fuck is? If you specifically go after the guy that would be
Look,
a loser by every other person.
If you really want to get honest about it, this is because of Shrek.
Yeah.
Shrek has.
I'm so glad Shrek's come up so
transformed
many
an
times
entire-
today.
Seriously,
Oh my god.
Shrek, I mean, has changed the way that like our mythological structure has structured relationships. It literally has presented the idea that you should date the fat slob in the swamp and become like him. That's what the mythological structure has become.
Earlier, Ryan was like, dude, I'm so busy in my life. I have no time to watch your 20-minute Shrek video about how Satanism evolved in the 90s. But I'll tell you now, we're gonna just have to like mention a couple things. So basically, Anton LaVey's daughter decided she was gonna leave the church, and she changed her name. She dropped Anton LaVey's name, and when she did that, she changed her name to Xena Shrek. And so it's because she was associated with this dude Shrek who was interviewing Charles Manson, who's what the donkey is based on in the Shrek comic. And also in the movie, which is based on the Shrek book. But Shrek actually has to do with the Yiddish or German word for fright and has to do with this primordial evil. And so the Smash Mouth period of Satanism is this removal of the Judeo-Christian Jesus and devil. I forget why we were talking about Shrek. Oh, yeah, because they're telling men that men are... Well, it's not... It's like the thing is you can become it's like the man's supposed to, the guy who's already a man supposed to help you become a woman, you become a family or something like that, or vice versa. Like you got people that are working together to become adults, right? It's almost a transgendering in and of itself. And we accept that because it's a natural one. But a child is not an adult and they're very different. And in Shrek, they show this woman who's trying to become this thing that she really cannot be. And eventually, and that is the social material religion, like whatever culturally acceptable norms are, right? Which is either Christianity or Satanism in the 90s. And the true answer is to be yourself, according to Shrek, which is to outgrow outwards, right? Instead of to grow upwards.
Yourself is good. Being yourself is great.
It's crazy because, you know, like you have the character of the princess, and that's like that's who she is. And then she ends off being an ogre. And it's just, this is just telling women literally, like adapt to your slobbish male to the point of losing your sacred, your sacred monarchy status. It's just it's insanity. And
my baby rabies.
Look, my favorite part about Shrek is that the donkey, the beast of burden, ends off fucking a dragon, and they make dragon donkeys. And I mean, just from a symbolic point of view, like this is the most insane thing possible.
And as a side, I never really thought about how Andrew Tate looks so much like Anton LaVey.
It's true. It's true.
Dude, look up Neil Strauss.
He's a clone.
I call him Buff Neil Strauss for a reason.
Neil Strauss. Oh, what?
Whoa!
What's going on?
Mystery were like the original two guys that made Pickup into the Thing. Huh. He used to work for Rolling Stone. He's the one that wrote like the game.
Is he a clone?
Yeah, Buff Neil Strauss. You can't unsee it, sir.
They're all
his
clones
backstory is kind of been tragic.
Damn.
What's even happening? So
Look at that dome.
My God, I don't know.
Yeah,
Do you want
trips me out.
Yeah.
Let me
so hey,
pull
about
back.
that thing you had about the girls want to date like weak easy guy. How do you know this? It's new to me, so I kind of want to do a deep dive.
It's in
Oh,
colleges.
sure.
You can see it anywhere, really. Just there's an inversion of values, basically. So they go like you have to if you reject the typical values of masculinity, of patriarchy, of all these systems of values
And embrace what the mainstream
talking like
media
the
has shown for the
feminists.
last 20 years
Yeah.
has been the acceptable male. Then
But
you've
I
got this dude that fits in a purse, and it's called California. I don't know if you've ever been to Santa Cruz, but it's
No,
actually
this-
designed that way.
Yeah, this makes sense. I was on a podcast with this girl, Savvy Writes What, and she was like a bigger boobied girl, and she had like a very like effeminate like purse
Call it
dog of a
boss babe.
husband. She hates
Yeah.
me. She called me a cult leader, which whatever. I mean, she's entitled to her opinion. But I remember
mean-
that, and he was very easy and non like confrontational, and there was not. It was like wet, mushy pablum of a husband, and I just assumed it was one of those girls. Like I have friends and family that are like that, where they had a very bad experience with their fathers, and so they like weak men because it's controlling, gives them a sense of security. But yeah,
I think I think it's even more the Brave New World thing where you see what is successful and you go for that. So the thing is, you're never going to see alphas and betas, which is like what they're projecting as your opportunity. But you get to be, these gamma, delta, epsilon characters, which they have less and less oxygen. So they have more and more oxygen deprivation in their genetic creation. That's partially how they keep them controlled. But they're all competing against each other, thinking which job is more important, even though they're just freaking jobs. Like one of them has to wear green pants and the other one has to wear brown pants. And the other one has to wear black pants. And one of them has to fix the machines. And one of them has to install the machines. And one of them has to, I forget, like to update the machines. But they're just who's more important really at that level. And so then you're looking at what kind of guy succeeds in that circumstance. And if he's a tall nail, then he gets hits with a hammer all the time. So you start to see that generation after generation, that people born between the crises, that people that they don't stick out, the people that are calm, that they don't have this reactionary anger that gets them taken away from their families and put in jails, right? They just submit to the system, then that becomes the viable means of survival. And so you can maybe it doesn't take that many generations even to have weak fathers. And then, I think that honestly, it's not just that they have bad fathers. It's also often that they've had successful weak fathers, because that is something that works in this last society.
Dude, that's what they say too. Black America, 10 years ahead of white America for that. You saw that, how the how black families from like welfare were completely decimated. And then what happened to Black America growing up? Simps and thugs. Guys were either extremely simpish or like over caricature of masculinity thuggish. And right now, white America is kind of caught up to that. And you're getting the same thing. Yeah. That's how you get Sneeko and Tate on one side. Then on the other side, you get Destiny and also Sneeko in some weird way, where they're like, yeah, you're not really a confident man unless you get your girl get railed on, or like the Jack Murphy thing. Send her to her Tinder date, drive her down there, which is all like weird stuff. But it's typical social media. You got to amplify stuff, right? Yeah, I used to love this show. Did you guys like the old Vivian or the new Vivian? I kind of liked the new one, even though she wasn't as popular, supposedly.
I liked the new Vivian.
Yeah,
I liked the old Vivian, but I know the story that she got in fights with Will Smith all the time, so I think I liked her more for that.
She got in
that sounds spunky.
I
was like,
the
fact that she
hasn't gotten a fight with Will Smith at this point.
She just seems so sassy, and I kind of want to watch every movie she's ever been in. But I'm afraid what I might find, but I don't know.
Here's a new one for you. You want some more things? So the British consulate bringing the head of economics to see the Tates in prison. Yeah, I knew it was money.
That kind of money
they were going after, and the whole sex trafficking thing is just a pretense to hold them. I knew it. Shout out to Crab Crawler, by the way. He does some excellent deep dives into this stuff. He puts them out onto Twitter all the time.
My God. Yeah, that's interesting. So it's I can see that, though. That might be interestingly connected to the FTX or all that other crypto stuff, because crypto and gambling seem inextricably linked at this point. Who knows? It's speculation.
That'd be funny. All this, the fate of mankind, and it turns out it was just some money laundering.
So, there's a better way to do this, actually. Afro Man, replace my door, I think is the one. There's a new song that just came out from Afro Man, and it's just got footage of his house being raided. And it's just over and over again, footage of the police bouncing in, terrifying his family, looking behind the couch and stuff like that. They found nothing but lemon pound cake, organic lemon pound cake without any drugs or anything like that. But he's got a song called "Will You Help Me Repair My Door?" Anyway, they're looking for kidnapping, etc. Simultaneously, there was the Joe Biden classified documents sold to China and Russia, right? And what's the deal? What do you guys think about this? They did this whole bust of Trump. I get that, no one cares. But then they busted Afro Man. And when they came for Afro Man, I'm going to speak up, because soon they'll come for me. But what do you think about Biden?
Well,
I just wanted to make it relatable so people cared, Like, it could have been Afro Man. Sorry.
Every time power changes hands ever so slightly, then all the skeletons come out. That's just the game we've been conditioned to play. So, like, if the house gets taken over the other way, like, it's all about who's in power. So, like, we know these things are happening constantly, and it takes a while for it to shake out, depending on how much leverage the other side has. Unfortunately,
They're all corrupt.
yeah, we have a conditioned system of corruption. It's just
Their
standard
lives are
now.
okay. The other person's lives are not okay.
Right.
It's all just lies. So
Is it
Oh,
really
he had-
literally that equal though? Because it just
Yeah,
seems like
documents are so bad. I would never do that. And
look,
then-
it's just echo chambers pretending that they have the truth, arguing over the other person. Not
see, that's the
having any
problem
bad
because like the
parts.
Republicans and the red, I feel like Ryan here because like the red pill movement, like I was really into the truth movement back in like 2001 and stuff, 2004, whatever it was, and
Yeah.
almost into the election, and then Obama got elected. I was like thinking to myself, man, truth. You offer people the truth, and they'll take the truth, but they don't take the truth. They take obey. I was surprised with that. I was like, why would you take obey if you had the truth as an option? And so that changed me a lot. But now I see the red pill movement. I'm like, oh, I see how it works. In fact, if you make a hot manga about Trump and there's a really good J-pop song, he will get elected. And that's a way better way to think than
branding.
like
Attention's
what
the
happened with
currency of the realm.
with Ron Paul. That was how I felt when I was like a teenager. So
Yeah, well, it's like let's say getting out of the Matrix was a democratic vote. Like there'd be a lot of people eating the steak. So
yeah, but the
it
thing
would
is,
work.
what would you do? Get into the Republican party? It's out of the frying pan into the fire. It's a uniparty. It's the uniparty system. So it's the one thing that Trump was able to convince a lot of people, I think, was that he was somehow outside of that system. Like he was at least disgraced or uningratiated somehow from the
He
system.
did
Like
turn on them. You got to admit.
it makes him look like
I don't know.
Caddyshack. It's
Look,
like that movie Caddyshack.
It's easy to be an inside agent on this. You're a multi-billionaire. You know everyone. You have to go through the channels. You don't become president democratically. They don't let it gamble like that. It has to be planned to a degree.
Remember
And
that
so-
movie
Well,
Caddyshack
that's why
with
I
the
think
new
that
money
Trump
and
never
the
actually wanted to get elected. I think he was doing that to build his brand, but then all of his competition was so bad, he kind of just because he's like, who says like Rosie O'Donnell's a bitch? Like
Thing is,
that'll
the
get me
elections
out of the
are
race.
rigged.
There's no way, and
Look,
it made him win.
Trump
Parker.
spent his time saying that the elections are rigged, and then he won.
Yeah,
And it's just
Right.
like, yeah, they're rigged. He wasn't lying. He won because they're rigged, and he was supposed to win. And the parties oscillate between Democrat and liberal and Democrat and Republican endlessly, and that's just the way it goes. It's they let go of having real presidents like after they shot JFK basically because it was too much of a gamble to leave it in the hands of an actual person.
Thank you
have
for
to put it-
reminding me what
they have to
really
put it
question
happened.
for you
Yeah.
too, though. Elections Canada. Do you think they're on the up and up, or do you think they're kind of?
I think the whole thing is rigged. I mean, there's no way
Well,
that in the modern era, they like based on the statistics they collect and everything that they know, why would they let the population that they brainwash vote for?
We
who
need
they
we need
want?
to be
Like,
very
there's
careful
no
about our
way
wording
that-
here. I would say the elections work exactly correctly and precisely the way that they're supposed
this
to
is-
work.
This
And
is
everything
the-
is working just fine.
This is the shit that is so frustrating because everyone knows at least. a
Well, hold on,
fragment of the
hold
truth,
on.
But we
Let's
can't
put it this
actually
way.
say
How
it.
to argue with me this? How about this? The system is working exactly the way it's designed to work.
It's
It might
working
not be.
exactly
It might
as
not be
intended.
that. And let's extend that. It might not be that it's broken from the way it's supposed to work. It might be that we're not aware that there are certain little things that go around the system we think is supposed to exist that doesn't. So we're thinking democracy is this thing. It's
Actually,
not.
I'll go with you on that. Like, I live in downtown Toronto, and it's like a liberal stronghold. They literally move guys here that they want to move up the ranks in the party because it's such an easy win. It's like 2-1 votes for every other party.
You got to
I
see
honestly-
this.
But
you
here's
got to see
my
this guy
thought.
talk
It's not
about.
that they're rigging. I think it's honestly that people will just vote liberal here, whoever it is. They could throw a dead body. They could throw who's that troll you guys elected in the States there, the big ogre,
Right.
Ferdinand or something.
Something like that.
Ferdinand.
I'm gonna call him Ferdinand because that's way
Oh,
better.
I bet
Ferdinand
you
the
could put
Bold.
that guy in here and he would win.
Grease
downtown
the
Toronto if
ogre.
He was liberal.
I'm just gonna call. We're gonna say we elected Ferdinand the Bull. That's a way better. That actually would be nice.
Nice.
I would be okay with that.
It's Feder woman.
Federland,
so-
that's the guy.
Federman.
No, we were better off
Ferdinand
before.
Band.
Look, Caddyshack is literally the story of the Trump election because it's about new money working together with the actual interior to take
Everybody
over
gets
the
laid.
golf course, and it's you have to acknowledge the Scottish Rite and everything else in between, and the beavers, but or groundhogs, whatever. But there
Groundhog.
was, dang it, okay, the election though. So if you go back to 1776, there isn't a president for 13 years, which, got to tell you, that means there's a second revolution and a coup that goes on in 1789. And so America, after the first 13 years, elect George Washington, which was, as this video calls it, weirder than you think. And I actually recommend watching it probably at 2 times speed. But he talks about how they had no idea what they were going to do to elect a dictator or a president in charge, because they just had the states would have their own leaders and they would figure it out for themselves. And then the states would be able to send their delegations. But then they said, no, that's not going to work anymore. So we're going to have a president.
Wasn't Washington part of the Hellfires Club, though?
He was part of the Hellfires Club and part of the Seven Sisters, which is another whole French Luciferian thing. That was both Ben Franklin adjacent, though. He was also a Jacobin, so you can get into the House of Orange thing there too. But president, electoral college created. So the electoral college is created to decide who the president is. That is the only thing that everyone agreed on. The only thing. Beyond that, who decides who's going to be on the electoral college? The states decide. So if you want to send your people to the electoral college, the state gets to pick however they want. They can choose, you can vote, you can have districts, whatever. That's all up to the state. We think that that's so much more. Oh, well, people vote for the electors and the electors elect the president. Actually, a lot of people don't even think that. They're thinking that the president's elected by the votes themselves. We should remember that's not how it works. So let's say for a second that a bunch of people voted for somebody and they won. That would probably mean that the election was rigged, right? Because there's no reason why the electors are supposed to listen to the populace. They're not. There's no law that says your congressperson has to vote based on what you say, right? And so the system's not rigged. The system's built that way. That is what the system is, and it's designed to protect people against ignorant populace.
Means when something is rigged, that means the system is designed that way.
Well, but let's say that the system was designed so that a bunch of people watched MTV and then they voted for whoever P. Diddy told them to. And you know what I mean? Like if Skull and Bones is
of course. It's
not going to change. It might not change anything, right? Like because an educated populace they still control the education.
But you guys are different than Canada too, because Canada is a federalized country. You guys are almost like the EU. Like each state is kind of its own nation, and you guys just agree to get together for like communal things, isn't it?
We used to be that way up until 1789. So that's the thing. There's a secret Revolutionary War nobody talks about. And so in 1789, we have a whole new president. There was no president before that, but there might have been 13 black presidents according to Prince. But all of a sudden we have a new constitution that there was no federal constitution before 1789 to 91. They used the Articles of Confederation. So there was different money in every single state. Everyone had their own New Hampshire dollar or the Delaware dollar, right? They were not a country in the way that you think of them. And all of a sudden they said, well, we don't even know if they're going to swallow the debts of the Revolutionary War. So that's how Alexander Hamilton made so much money, was he bought the debt saying, well, obviously this is a new country, so no one's going to pay those debts. And then he worked his way into the government and said, oh, I think we should pay those debts to show that we've assumed the liability of the old government. But he bought he's like for $1 for every $100, he bought their debt. So he made just crazy amounts of money.
Dude, if anything, that's such an American thing to do, man.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Hamilton was pretty American, that's for sure. But I don't know how the electoral college system works in Canada. But I imagine it's similarly.
We have here, and you basically vote for your member of parliament, and then whoever has the most members of parliament forms a government.
Do you do it the same way we do, where like as soon as the votes are all counted, you put them in the trash and then you just throw a cup of pee at the wall? Or do you have like a system? Because we don't really count the votes towards the elected, right?
Each party has its own leader. And then when you elect seats, ideally, if you want a majority government, you have to have like 51% of all the seats in Canada. If I get some details wrong, please correct me. And at 51%, then you form the government. And then whoever's the leader of your party becomes the prime minister. Get it? Like the first minister.
See, because that's the thing.
Otherwise, you get a minority government. If you only get like Trudeau right now, 32% of the votes, 32% of the seats, he's like got the smallest amount of votes you can get and still run a country. The minority governments are good because that means he has to convince at least one other party to vote along with him for stuff. And that's what his little deal with the NDP is right now.
But you guys for sure are basing who wins on votes. That's actually how things work. We don't vote for the prime minister. We vote for his party. And his party elects the prime minister. See, because the thing that was interesting about like Maryland and Pennsylvania, Maryland and Virginia, for instance, didn't want to be part of the new constitution. They had a bunch of these little districts created. Pennsylvania voted as a giant empire block, that it was just the biggest, strongest vote. And so the British government were trying to come up with ways to stop that from happening, which is what worked its way into the American Constitution. And I would imagine that you guys have kind of a similar system as the British system, where you would send the commoners get to select a few names. I think it was in Maryland. You put down 10 names of 10 different people you want, and then the 10 most liked persons were suggested, and then of that, the state gets to pick which one they want. So
I don't know if that
even
was like
then,
their founding. Does anybody you guys know?
that's what it's like in America, but I don't know about Canada.
Yeah, well, here, yeah, it's pretty much you get you run in your riding and you vote for the guy in the riding, and then the riding is just sent up and they.
But
pick
maybe
the
you
guy.
guys have also sidestepped that
But
because
keep
you're
in mind
voting
too,
for
we
parties.
don't elect our Senate. Our Senate is appointed by the government,
Right.
like the government
There
in
you go.
power. So it's more like an upper house and lower house thing. We can just vote for parliament.
You're voting for parliament, which is basically your House of Commons, and you're voting for parties, which is not the same as voting for persons. So the party gets to choose. So you basically have circumvented the state picking by the party picking.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting. Okay, so the point here is that it's not rigged in the same way that we think it is. It's just like devilishly designed, right? And it's
Well,
working
I've
every
heard
time.
There's like a lot of patronage. Like government employees is like 30% of Canada's employment is government workers, and so any kind of like pro-government, like how the Liberals are spending a lot on government spending, that's really like appealing to those people's best interests, and so they kind of have secured votes. Like huge Liberal supporters, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, are government workers that have labor unions. They're in the bag types. Same thing with Quebec. Quebec usually votes for whoever handles their own internal national best interests. Like that's the Bloc's whole thing on a federal level, is just making sure Quebec gets theirs, you know? And they kind of sort of threaten separatism if they don't, which, you know, kudos to them. Alberta's trying that now, so we'll see how this works out.
So that's
Vince
the thing.
he's more of a Quebec master. Like I only lived there for a couple years, so he knows it probably better than me.
Yeah, Philip, do you have thoughts on Quebec?
I mean, part of the thing with Quebec is this whole language thing as well, which is not really a thing in the rest of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of an outlier, and it's pissing a lot of people off. Other than that, yeah, it's kind of strange that we have our own provincial party running in the federal. I never really got that, to be honest.
You guys in the debates are awesome though, the Bloc, because they just don't care. I don't even care to win this thing. He just speaks his mind. It's awesome.
Yeah.
This is interesting. This is the Canadian coat of arms, right? So it kind of shows you how Canadian Canada is. And so I kind of wonder sometimes about Quebec, because the idea that Quebec would want to be its own state so badly, it seems like a good thing in a lot of ways, right? I mean, but do they? I don't think they ever really do. I think they're just kind of saying that all the time to like lord it over Canada, that they could.
Ask JF Garapi, he'll tell you.
I don't know about that, because they did run that referendum back in, I don't remember what year.
86,
And
Meech Lake.
What?
You're talking about Meech Lake?
I don't remember what it was called, but it was the referendum for the separation of Quebec from Canada.
Yeah,
Something like 49.5% of people voted yes. So it was actually really, really close to coming.
Yeah.
Do you remember what it was called, Vincent?
It was in the 80s.
Yeah, something like that. They had a few referendums, and one of them was really, really close. So
1980 Quebec referendum.
yeah, that might be it. Yeah, there it is. See,
And then they had
end of the last
second one was in
paragraph.
95 with Chrétien, and that's when they had the really close one. Because he said he's not going to split Canada up over like a single percentage or something. It needed to win by 75% before the government recognized it.
Oh, 75%, that much.
I think it was something like, I could be missing like generally. The funniest thing though is nobody in the Canadian government or the Quebec government had any plan for if this actually went through. So like everybody was expecting it to fail, and it got really close. But yeah, it would have been such a mess. Like Brexit ain't got nothing on what would have happened at this one.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, it is reflective of how the people here actually feel about that, and it's especially the older generation, I think, which happen to be the ones who have a higher turnout in the provincial elections as well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's not necessarily a joke, especially if you listen to the local radio. They're talking about it. So
yeah, I mean, that would be awesome, I think, because it would force Canada to change. I don't know if the idea of a Quebec would be really a free state, though. In the same way Ukraine's not a free state. Who are the alliances going to be to? What would they tie to? I don't know how free they would really end up. But I think it'd be
Alberta's
awesome.
moving that direction too, though. Now that's the thing. Speaking of people that hate Quebec, Alberta and Quebec, that's like, I don't even know what the equivalent is in the States. California and Texas or something. I don't even know.
It could be.
Yeah, ask any Albertan about federal transfer payments and watch their heads start spinning.
I mean, they do. That's where you got like your more neo-Republican Party thing that's been growing, and there's like a lady. Is that right?
Oh, the Wild Rose Party, you mean? Yeah, there's that. But the big thing now is the premier there, their version of the governor, just signed a law saying if the federal government steps across the bounds of what's federal and what's provincial, that we will not enforce it. Basically, like sanctuary state laws. And everybody's all pissed off. She's like, "Look, just don't break the law, and we won't do this." It was pretty funny. It was pretty funny.
That's the biggest fascist to go to ever. Just don't break the law. You have nothing to worry about.
Well, she was talking to Trudeau specifically, not us.
I gotta say, as an Albertan, it's kind of interesting now.
BurnEye.
Hey, how's it going, Jordan? They were
Good, Buck.
Dude, Edmonton native here.
Edmonton native, all right. The north
Edmonton
my
native.
land. I'm down in Calgary, but like I remember in the 90s there when there was the Quebec referendum and how close it was, like in the split of 49.5 compared to 50.5 voting to stay, but then the government not taking it seriously because they needed like a threshold of like 65% or something for it to actually pass. And then on top of that, every single province would have to vote and ratify it as well for it to have actually been able to separate. And I appreciate the French and the Quebec society and like country or state within a country of Canada. And it actually gives us like more diversity, more independence, hopefully from being a like substantive state of the empire in the US and whatnot. And
yeah, but it's the empire. That's the thing. Even if you're not part of America, then you're part of Britain in this really hardcore way, like we saw that coat of arms.
Five Eyes, the Anglo Zionist empire of today, essentially.
I think secretly Canada's like running the world, but it's not you guys. You know what I mean? It's like there's a group of
that's for sure.
Just look at our money.
There's a group of British though that probably live in Canada. I think probably Canada and in Belize, British Honduras.
Who's on our dollar?
Right. Exactly.
Well, ask me again in a month.
What's a dollar? Who's on the loony?
A lunar, bud.
The loony on the loon.
All right. This is how you'll know. Actually, this was how you'll know. Is this as soon as this happens, and then you'll know what's really going on because nothing's changed. Why would they keep doing it? So hopefully they don't, and maybe that'll prove me wrong. But I bet you this year sometime this could happen. You're going to see King Charles on Canada's money. And you're going to be like, really?
I'm going to do a $25 bill.
A 25er? What's going on, bud?
And that's what you're worried about? God, Canada.
Adjusted for inflation.
That's going to change our math, you know?
Right
Just
on.
inflation, man.
Inflation we had to
It's
have.
a forever now.
We'll call it a big quarter.
You keep talking about our king, man. I'm going to have to start feeding it to you.
See,
Couple
that's the
jumbo
thing.
quarters.
I could easily imagine King Charles talking like that to hide out in Canada if he had to, right? Like that's the
Look at
thing.
those eyes.
Take
Does
them.
that not look like a frog, a toad, some sort of
Look at his-
reptilian?
Look
All
at
right.
his hands.
I waited a long time for this. Vincent, what are the Sons of Liberty?
Well, there was a conspiracy theory going around that I read it in a book. Actually, it was a book I read called, I think, Les Fils de la Liberté, and so it was saying that apparently the British, I mean the Quebecers, people from Quebec, there was like a terrorist group that burnt down the White House. But now if you go and check all the fact checking, it just says that it was the British. And I have a feeling that there's a revisionist history to this because, there's some really, really rowdy French Quebecers for a long time. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually burned down the original White House. But apparently that was the British, according to modern fact checks. So
See, I remember being taught it was the Canadians that went and burnt down the White House, and now it's the British, but originally it was the French Canadians.
yeah, actually, I learned about that in school too. So that was a book I read in school.
See, that's the funny thing. You're damned if you're British and damned if you aren't. So you kind of like, it's a good way to avoid the fact that it was Canadian British. You just say, hey, look, guys, we're friends now. Okay, let's calm down. At the time, we were really, we were still with our abusive ex-spouse.
It's the image. It's the image projected.
Oh, this is what I needed. Thank you. This is the picture. That's what happened that day. I don't know, YouTube. But no,
he
the
should
War
have
of
been in
1812.
blackface. Why isn't he in blackface though? He
That's
should have
true.
been in blackface.
Especially like the soot would have been on his face by then. That's actually what it's all about. But the War of 1812 is a bigger deal than people realize. So I like to say World War Zero because World War One, World War II, like by this point, we've already had a worldwide conflict. Russia, Venezuela, United States, Canada. It's pretty big. You know what I mean? China as well. So the Uyghur. So I would say World War Zero counts. And at this time, how many of these places are run by this Axis royal family, which are out of the Sophia Naturalization Treaty in Britain, so the House of Wilhelm, which has now become the House of Windsor. So you've got this weird German family that controls Britain, that's controlling Canada, that have their oligarchies there. I don't know. That's basically. Do we lose Ryan before I can say Ryan's book? I'm sorry, Ryan. Ryan, we love you, Ryan. I'll just really
Love
quickly
you,
guys.
Ryan.
Oh no!
Guys, go buy Ryan's book. It happens. Practically, he's got stuff to do. He's put out this book, and he's in the process of doing his audio recording of it. So buy the book, but also expect very quickly. If you have Kindle, you get it for free. So just go read the book. Praxeology is rad. Way better than all the other red pilling stuff that we were worried about earlier with Andrew Tate. This is the real human self-actualization for the modern man. I like
douche, eh? I was listening to that, and Andrew Tate. Anyone pimping women, it's a douchebag.
Yeah, or cats, or anybody really. Pimping anybody really, I think. But so yeah, War of 1812, horrifying, and then you've got this idea of the Sons of Liberty tarring and feathering people, this gang, and then eventually that they become all of these different, or they splinter off into several different groups, including the Knights of the Golden Circle, which we talk about a lot, but also probably biker gangs. What do you think of that? Do you think there's a connection to just like the lower class independent anarchist movement that kind of started to spiral in the 18th century into the 19th century?
Well, like militias have always been the grassroots of enforcement, and essentially today's biker gangs are the militias of the areas. So
anarchists were pretty wild, you know, and at the time you're like, wait a second, what happened? All of a sudden we remove this one government under the guise you're getting us all to work together to remove this government and die for it, and now you're going to start taxing us? You guys are going to tax us after we fought with you to stop them from taxing us? That seems like the argument over and over again. I don't think anybody likes that. Pause for reflection. I don't know.
Yeah, a little reflection. You triggered memories of my youthful days when I hung out with some gangsters, the biker guys, and I'm pretty sure it turned out one of them was Mama Boucher hiding out from being wanted in Quebec, and it was pretty crazy. I was like, because I lived.
Dude, those are the coolest Hells Angels I've ever seen. Look at those shorts.
Right, awesome. Like. Is that Australian bikers? No, there's a four.
No, they're Quebec. They're Quebec, bro. They love
that's Quebec's finest.
They drink bubbly water and wine. You know, that's the kind of Hells Angels these are. That's great.
We have a film, a series in Quebec called Les Bougons. It's essentially Trailer Park Boys with except with Quebecers. They're BS, and they spend the whole show is them doing scams to make money, and it's a pretty decent show for what it is. But they made a movie at some point, and it's a heavy political show because the main character he's very critical of the government, and he goes on rants and stuff. And then in the movie he runs for office for Quebec, and he gets elected only by playing ball with the Hells Angels. And so there was a lot of hype for the movie because they were like, oh, they're really gonna basically full on expose the problems of Quebec, the government, and the Hells Angels and all these people. But then they barely scratched the surface because they control the media too. So of course there's no way to actually fully express it. They barely skim the surface, and if they actually had gone for it, they would have there was this movie came out right after the Lavallois construction scandal, where of course no one actually got in trouble, It was just like it was a symbolic
What happened
hearing.
there?
How do I spell Bell what?
Right here, Lavallois. So Laval. It's actually the most English place in Quebec. Here, I wrote it in chat.
Yeah. I tried
Simon
so
says
hard.
biker gangs are everywhere in Quebec. And Eblis says, I heard there's a lot of sex workers in Quebec. Why is that? And probably because there's biker gangs everywhere in Quebec.
Dude, that's the best thing though. Biker gangs, the French Mounties, and you got to think about like the equivalent to the French Canadian Mounties are the sheriffs in a lot of ways for the British. And you guys have your own, but you think about it, like that's what they're doing, and then you got biker gangs. Biker gangs are their cousins a lot of the time.
Although I have to reflect my times in Montreal, and like there's the strip clubs and like sexual culture in general is a lot more.
So it's not all bad.
Civilized like it's more free. It's like kind of like Vegas essentially in Montreal. So it's more of the culture.
That is the weirdest vision. That's a juxtaposition right there. Vegas and Montreal. I want to make that movie.
In many ways, you'd be surprised.
Oh, that sounds cool.
We have heavy gambling and
tourists. Like it's pretty.
Wanted
awesome.
to briefly point this out: the Russia's successful invasion in 1812 into the Americas. In other words, if you start to think about how crazy it is in 1812, all the countries that are fighting, where they're at, and where they're going. So the 1812 overture has become an American tradition, sacred amongst hot dogs, but it's not an American composition. It doesn't celebrate the War of 1812. Tchaikovsky's work itself is an invasion of sorts, an American invasion, a Russian invasion of America during the Cold War of 1950s, 1960s, blah, 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 blah. Well, okay. No, this isn't what we're talking about. Let's go further down. 1812 overture. Oh, is that really all they're trying to say? That's stupid. I feel cheated. I feel cheated right now.
From juicier.
Yeah, I was like, come on, America, go. It's going to be the song.
No?
Yeah, no. Napoleon invades America, but he's also has control of Western Russia at this point, although he doesn't control Moscow. Moscow's not in charge of Russia, right? So Petersburg is. So it's this whole other thing, and he's got an alliance with St. Petersburg. So, and then he doesn't have control of Moscow. And Moscow ends up becoming the new government of the new Russia. So that is the new Russia. It kind of jumps up afterwards. So weird. That's like all these countries that switch around at that time, and are fighting in 1812. But I wanted to go back to this. Bill Gates hosts another Reddit AMA, gets roasted for Epstein ties again. So like, when are we going to learn to forgive and forget? No, what are we going to do about this guy? Why is he gets on? What's he doing on Reddit? Or they?
How about the new monarchy going on Canadian currencies? Brothers ties to Epstein as well.
Right, yeah, which we've now said he's not officially a Druid anymore. He's lost the right to refer to himself as an Andrew. The Council of Andrew do not recognize Prince Andrew. So that's good. That's a step.
The Council of him do not recognize him anymore. They're like, sorry, you raped too many children.
Of Andrew.
Sorry, no, it's because he got caught.
The Council of Andrews.com is a very important and prestigious organization for Andrews, Andes, Drews. Andreas is actually the root name. See, derives from the root name Greek Andreas. So it's if you guys know any Andrews and you need any scholarships or bail money or something like that, you're trying to help Druids out, well, join the Council of Andrews. Just know that the Prince is not welcome, so he cannot join. But I don't know, man. It just seems like at some point, is this the test? At some point, they'll just find the people that are still talking about it. They block their accounts. They ghost them a little harder. They keep it, they're like, these people know what's going on. We're going to keep them out of the system. Wait a few years. The next generation's not going to know any of this stuff, right? Because how hard is it going to be to like deep dive into the internet in 2025, 2027, 2030? It's going to be almost impossible to find a lot of this. And no one's going to remember, I think, the Epstein scandal. What do you think? Is that crazy? Is that pessimistic of me?
I refuse to let the Epstein scandal and history be expunged from the media or history or the internet.
Right, but how do we... Go ahead.
It'll go into the annals like JFK did. It'll be another thing that people say we'll never forget, and then people will be debating it, and then the new argument will just be, it happened so long ago, why do you even care? But, I mean, look, we could keep saying that this is going to be the thing that we're going to keep reminding, but there's going to be another Epstein at some point. There's going to be another big thing that we're going to go, aha, this time we have them. It's not the way to solve this. It's not the way to end this, because this was it. They literally, they were cornered. I mean, what else? Where else do you go? There's a global organization for pedophilia involving billionaires, monarchies, like everyone, and they just covered it up. They just pandemiced it away. So, if you can, once you get people to submit and let you inject whatever the fuck you want after you're caught being pedophiles, you can get away with anything. Just like they said after JFK was killed, if you could kill the president, you can get away with anything, because they can get away with anything. They control everything. So you have a problem that emerges. They have another psyop around the corner just to make us forget about it. It's the old neuralizer at work, basically.
So what we need to do is we need to make a book called Epstein for Kids. It has to be,
that's just his biography, no?
Maybe the title, working title, Epstein for Kids might not be the title, but maybe it is actually. I don't know. The point is, we need to get this information into the next generation, because these kids aren't going to know about this. I mean, we need to talk to kids born after 2001 and ask them what they think about September 11th. I need some perspective. I need to understand what.
And don't let them turn Epstein into like a Jesus, because then we are all screwed.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because it probably will eventually if we're not careful.
I think it'll get imprinted into mythological structure, but at that point it'll be processed as entertainment, except it'll be there. So there's going to still be stories about, the hidden pedophiles and the secret wizards and all the secret societies and all this stuff. It'll just be filtered like every other story. So it'll be like a representation, a symbolic representation of Epstein will survive, but the actual story of Epstein will just be forgotten.
I mean, already, I don't think a lot of people really know what actually happened, with Epstein. It's like, that's the thing. It's already forgotten.
It's like, think of it like how zombies were a symbol, or like certain monster movies from the 1950s or 60s were symbols of the Cold War, or symbols of, the Russian scare, or how Jason was a symbol of, the dangers of casual sex and like debauchery and drinking in the 80s. And these are all just symbolic representations of real problems and real things that actually happen. And these things get sort of transferred over. Like the MK Ultra soldier that brainwashes people and wants to go kill the president. That's just Winter Soldier. So now it's in the mythological structure and no one gives a shit because it's just entertainment.
Yeah, it's fantasy instead of but that's nice too, because I remember as a kid thinking about the villains of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I was like, that's enough. I don't need to know like what really people are doing to each other in the streets.
Yeah.
It's fine to be afraid that they're just going to drink their blood. That's horrible enough, and
the truth is stranger than fiction, right? So,
yeah.
but I feel like that all this sort of cultural, I guess, filtering of these stories is actually a way to hide the truth in fiction. Like there's two ways to look at it, where you're just entertained by it, and the other one is a code to decipher. Because I mean, if you actually observe these stories from a collective, say like a collective mythological structure, collective psyche point of view, like it becomes an analysis of ourselves, our history of our very being. So, it's not all brainwashing, but it's a part of it.
Yeah, the noble Tao is not the eternal Tao. Yeah,
they're trying to take the truth and turn it into something to control us, but the truth is embedded in the lie. So you can find the truth in the lie if you decipher the lie, basically.
I don't think we're gonna go too deep in this yet, but Alien Scientists sent us this, and it's looking really important. So we have to do a real science on this. But if you're interested, tractor beam breakthrough could lead to levitating humans. They're building these handheld levitation devices for less than 70 pounds, which is about, get this, $70 because of the crash economies around the world.
Yeah, dude.
So we got to get one of those.
There will be a real science episode on that 100%.
When did Asia Marzo build this? 2017 is the picture credit. So I'm going to go ahead and say it's possible that this has been around for a while and that we can get ourselves
more years of development then. That's nuts.
Yeah, so there's time for us to look into it. Here's a look at the device levitating a pea or something like that. And we can do this with sound. That's the cool thing about sound.
Yeah, I've got a little acoustic levitator I got to bring out in one of the next ones. I guess I'll do a demonstration in this episode.
It seems to be working on Arduino. But yeah, hopefully we'll get that. Tomorrow we're doing something with Rife. Is that correct?
Saturday, I do believe.
Today's Thursday. God, the human calendar is very strange. Guys, if you don't know the human calendar, you can use starroot.com to actually convert the Mayan calendar into the human calendar. And that way you can understand what other people are doing with their days. If you
we could do a real science episode tomorrow night, though, on specifically the tractor beam as well as acoustic levitation and all of that. If Jeremy's down to multi-stream on.
Let's get Jeremy. Let's talk about that. I'd love to do an alien scientist thing. There's some stuff Starship. I could save them some of the Starship nonsense and then the Vimana stuff. I have some things we can think about that. We could really quickly go ask you guys. Do you have any thoughts about this? Because there's these pictures. The ancient Vimana were mythological flying
technology, the geometry, as well as like the actual materials that it's made out of. It's macro processors, macro resonators, macro generators, where today we're doing it in the micro sense and size, but it's the exact same materials and structure geometries that we're doing on these micro processors that these giant ones look like.
And you can imagine the bell thing, right? So we talk about der Glocken is the German bell that was based on like the 19th century Thule tech, and it's supposed to be UFO.
Well, the geometry of the bell, it's that also NASA's quote unquote ion drive or whatever they call it, where they've acknowledged it puts out a little bit more thrust out the end of the bell than on the inside, is the same shape of a bell, as well as whether you believe in the Big Bang or not. I don't necessarily do, but the geometry of it expanding out from the beginning all the way to the end is also this same geometry of this two-dimensional bell shape.
Kurt, have you ever been to Kecksburg?
Where
is that? Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
I mean, there's a lot of burgs. I never heard of that one.
Bruh, Keck. It's like literally in the name. But do me a solid. And if you can try to get someone to get a pizza delivered or something like in Kecksburg, because I'd love you to get a picture of this for me at sometime before you die. It's like not like super pressing.
Can we Uber a picture to places? That is the
guys. If anyone in the audience wants to send me Uber money, I will send Kurt Uber money from wherever he is in Pennsylvania to Kecksburg, which I'm sure isn't as far as it is from anyone else because he's in Pennsylvania. But what we get him to do is walk around the Kecksburg Bell. And so this is a UFO that hit Kecksburg in December 9th, 1965, and they've coded it like a beehive, right? But the idea that this was one of these prototypical bells from a space time traveling alien Nazi race, who knows what it is, right? But it's probably more interesting than that. That's probably just the 1960s Hollywood story. And it seems like what it is, it's a harmonic anti-gravity free energy device.
Like it does actually have like some sort of pictographic like symbols language into it, and
those are from the original. Even though they've coded it to keep it preserved, apparently those are supposedly the actual symbols that were underneath the thing. I don't know if I can find like original
petroglyphs over here. Jeez.
Right. Yeah. So it's very interesting. It also reminds me the Mormons have a beehive looking symbol and just some weird language.
As do the Freemasons, actually, the beehive symbol, key part of their 33 main symbols.
So I've been pretty interested in the Kecksburg Bell for a long time, and I always forget like all the fantastic things that are near my friends, and the fact that Kurt's so close to the Kecksburg Bell. It is something that I'm curious about. But the more we look into bells, Kurt is an alien. Yeah, Kurt, you're an alien. But so
they have a UFO fest apparently. It's I think it's like 30 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. That's where Kecksburg is.
Divine time, I would like to hit your bong that is a beehive.
Lord, please send money to Kurt, friends in the audience, so that we can give me some money so we can send Kurt to Kecksburg so we can look at the thing. Send a little bit more money and I'll fly out there and go to the UFO convention with him. Sounds like a fun thing to do.
Yeah, let's look into that. Get Jeremy and myself.
Because that's the thing. I'm more and more interested in UFOs. Like, so I spend a lot of time talking to flat earthers, and I think it's really important. But I also think that there's a cognitive dissonance about if something's not what you think it is, it's a hoax. And that means not to look into the thing at all. And I think that's dangerous.
100% some sort of interdimensional phenomenon going on that is now
there's several things, and fundamentally, even if you're just like your patent American atheist or Canadian atheist, you could acknowledge that there are UFO crafts being built by the government or corporations that are around the world. So there are humans doing this, and that should be enough for you to wonder about what kinds of advanced technology is being kept from the average people. But when you go further and you start to look into this idea of genetic modified super soldiers or time travel from, electricity in the future that's traveling through the internet, I mean, it actually gets pretty weird how logical it is that we might be in contact with something that isn't exactly the same kind of human that we are, but is conscious. I don't know. That's a lot, but I feel like take a lot of salt with that as well. Dude, also, this is clearly about the vagina. There's like this weird anti-chauvinistic quality to Predator, right? Like it's the idea of the Alien movie is all about being impregnated, right? And Predator is all about sort of the predatorial nature of femininity, which I think is what they put in the new Prey movie.
Huh.
Can you see that movie?
Explains a lot of my past relationships.
So in this movie, they actually show how like the human female is able to defeat the male predator, because obviously, like naturally, who's more of a predator, right? And this was considered like allowed for feminism, highly accoladed as like a feminist triumph in motion pictures and sci-fi. I don't know. That was just a thought. There was a couple other things. Let me go beyond that. Let me see. I had Sergey Brin. Oh, Third Eye. I want to talk about Third Eye. So there's a show I didn't remember the name of yesterday, and a couple days ago I was talking about Nickelodeon in the 80s and what Nickelodeon was like when it first came out. And everyone's like, oh yeah, it was you can't say that on television, or I forget, like flubber kind of stuff. Like
my middle name was banned from TV.
Did it say banned? Where'd it say this was banned? Oh yeah. This was banned. Was it banned?
Oh no, I misheard what you were saying. So this was a TV series called The Third Eye. My bad.
Right. It wasn't really banned. It was just super freaking weird, and it was before anybody else had a show like that. Let me see if I type in Nickelodeon. Look,
this is what I named myself after. Wow!
You sent me the show, and I was like, "There's no way they would have any series today that would be called The Third Eye." It's because they want to shove out the esoteric in mainstream media. I think
into the labyrinth. Yeah.
I
think it comes in waves.
That face picture needs to be a part of my logo.
This right there, this terrified, yeah. The Third Eye, into the labyrinth. 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific today. Yeah. This show is terrifying, and you can get it on Nickelodeon, and it premiered in 1983. And it begins with a disclaimer that says, "The following is a science fiction program and may contain some startling scenes. This show is intended for older children." Right?
Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, what's up, Jeremy? We're talking about The Third Eye. Are you old enough to possibly remember this show? Have you ever heard of The Third Eye?
Nah, this was like I was maybe one or two when this came out. So I was.
Still have your YouTube on, Jeremy?
Oh yeah, I think I hear in the background some noise. Is that from me? Oh yeah, there might be a YouTube on. Yeah, I'll just say really quickly, this show is freaking nuts, and it's about a third eye activated children. Series from United Kingdom and New Zealand, focusing on these psychic kids that are being activated to be super kids, basically. And they go into the labyrinth, the haunting of Cassie Palmer, which is kind of like, is it Laura Palmer? Was it from Sarah Palmer? What is it from Twin Peaks? We were talking about the other day. Laura Palmer. In April 1983, a fourth serial, Children of the Stones, was added, which is the most terrifying one. And then the fifth one, The Witches and the Grinneyog, which is based on like the 1600s witches, and they were like midwives that were burned at the stake because they knew medicine and King James wasn't down. So confusing part of checkerboard schedule. Third Eye was pulled from Nickelodeon's lineup so the network could focus on original series. But this was a British produced show. So that's why I was confused, because I thought it was a Nickelodeon produced show. It was just distributed in America for the British Mind Control Agency of Tavistock or whatever it is. But yeah, basically it was completely, it was nuts. I mean, they were going through these weird Masonic checker path ruins, and then they're on these weird indoor sets that are these outdoor worlds, like the Wizard of Oz or something like that. And then they have all these the entire show's Masonic rituals being enacted by these 10-year-old kids. And that it's designed in order to walk them through. And so originally there was just 3 episodes, and those were basically the third 3 degrees. And it teaches kids kind of like a walkthrough of what it'll be like to get to be, entered apprentice. Master Mason is the third. What's the second one again? Entered apprentice. What are the 3 degrees? Gosh, 3
I should know this. I only made it to the first before dropping out.
Entered apprentice. What is it? So embarrassing. Entered apprentice. Fellow craftsman, Master Mason. Right. Okay.
That's what it is.
So, but then you go beyond fellow craft into Master Masonry, and you're like, you don't need anything else. And they're like, no, you do need more. Into the Labyrinth, and then the Witches of Grinneyog, which is kind of this like honorary, step into like shrinery or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's even Scottish Rite. I'll have to rewatch it. But this is the gnarliest show I think that they ever made for kids. And Kurt, I think you're right that they wouldn't put this on TV right now. But then, don't they do shows like this every few generations to an extent? And wasn't there like a Wizards of Waverly Place that was kind of this utilitarian cult?
Oh, we only
heard of that one.
We've only had a few generations of actual TV, so it's hard to understand. Like, I don't know, things are crazy because of our media landscape. Well, I guess the only real media landscape we had for hundreds of years was just paper. Yeah. So the way that's like accelerated over the past 50 years, it's hard to grasp. So I don't know if we're heading into a large period of censorship or it's going to get better. Well, and it's also like we have communities of people that have been so clever about like just defeating censorship and finding information their own ways. So it's interesting to see how big of a gap there will be between the mainstream narrative of things and what people actually accept. Because I think there's a lot of people, I think the people we tend to talk to and talk with, we don't really pay that much serious attention to mainstream media. I think a lot of us develop our own narratives about the world based on how we communicate with each other.
I think a lot of kids, though, their parents will be at work and then they'll watch the Disney Channel. And the Disney Channel will teach them that they want to be witches, and that the most self-serving thing is to help others, because then others will help them, which is the sort of utilitarianism that Disney teaches instead of doing right for right or wrong for wrong.
But then you have 10-year-olds that are watching Squid Game, and it's becoming, it's like parents aren't censoring their children. They're too lazy to censor what their kids are viewing, and that's a huge problem. It's not like it's
Squid really Game, a quick jump from Squid's OdySee to Squid Game. It's not hard.
I mean, I was born in 82. I had Disney Channel growing up, and all I really remember was like Gummy Bears and DuckTales.
Yeah. Gummy bears. Oh my God. Gummy bears, alchemy and Satanism everywhere. That was a good show. I mean,
they would drink the magical gummy juice and it would give them the powers.
They had to make the gummy juice, which was like a serious alchemical trick that took a lot of effort, and they had to get all this weird stuff to do it. And yeah, they would just, I mean, that show was nuts. And all the people in that show regretted it and went on to work for Adventures in Odyssey for Focus on the Family, doing Christian radio drama, trying to serve God as hard as possible to get back into heaven after they made the gummy bears. That is a terrifying show, but I love the theme. It's great. The show was created because he just got Eisner had taken over Disney, and he was in a plane, and he was so pissed off at the animation department, particularly after Don Bluth had quit, because Don Bluth had walked out in the making of the Black Cauldron, and eventually went on to make Anastasia and Dragon's Lair, the video game, and What are some other things you remember? Feifel Goes West, Land Before Time. You've seen a lot of the things he did, but he quit Disney. And so Eisner's like, all right, that's it. Animation studio gone. Tear it down. You know what? We're gonna like tear down the whole animation studio and move all the animators into these mobile home buildings and tractors or trailers. And they did that. And then he said, you know what? We don't even need them anymore. We're gonna get guys in Asia to do the animation instead. But I don't know what we're gonna do. We could do a Mickey Mouse cartoon and bring it back, but you know, the copyright's coming up in the 80s and we don't know how that's gonna go. I know what we'll do. And so his kid's on a plane with him, and he's looking at the gummy bears that his kid's eating. And so he pulls out his like AT&T mobile cell phone in 1981 or whatever it is. And by the time he lands, he's secured the deal to create the Gummy Bears cartoon and have it fully financed for less than the cost of a house by an Asian animation studio. And that's how Gummy Bears was created, which is kind of interesting, I thought.
Really?
Yeah. But since Jeremy's here, I kind of feel like we do get to talk about the acoustic portal tractor because I don't know that much about it. Talk to me, Jeremy.
Well, I just noticed one of the things I always look for is just on the list, warp drive, entanglement, gravity, anti-gravity. I search every day, every science thing for these, a couple of key search words and search terms just to see if anything comes out, because sometimes stuff comes out and then it disappears, So you have to like be there.
Like this article from 2017. Right. Exactly. What the heck? How did this go missing for so long? I've known you since this long, and I know how deep you scrape the internet to find this stuff.
Sometimes you have to search every day because something will pop up from 20.
I bet you they hid this for a while. Bristol probably had this unlisted. You know what I mean? Like they do that.
Yeah. But this is 6 years ago.
Crazy. I can't believe it. And the amount of work that has probably been done since then means that we would know how and what is viable about it.
Right. 6 years ago is enough time for them to fully scale that down in size of like the reaction and then multiply a whole bunch of them across an entire craft.
So what are we looking at here? Probably like $100 or less. How much do you think these speakers are costing?
I've got a couple of those actually.
So there's been a couple other ones built that are like newer than this for these acoustic modulation devices. They can like float styrofoam balls and stuff, but I don't know if they can actually like suspend water or humans or animals or anything like that. I've yet to see one of these things that can,
that big.
Super dense objects and stuff. Yeah, we'll work with like a grain of.
But this is liquid, right?
I got just one of the little acoustic levitators.
Oh wow, there you go.
Shout out Michael Boyd sent me this to experiment with. You can get them just off of Amazon. I think for like $20.
Oh, nice.
I feel like if you get like 10 subwoofers, then from Craigslist or on the free side of the internet, a Facebook Marketplace, you could probably put together something like this.
Yeah,
skateboard ramp.
Scale, yeah, like on a skateboard ramp.
It just so happens I have a garage full of collected subwoofers and speakers to eventually try stuff like this, or at least get all the ring magnets out of them.
Yeah, I would say this would make a lot of sense because you could get like a dome-shaped pool, one of those, or something. I don't know. And that's the other question: is would a vinyl thing that flexes be as strong, or would you need to build it out of a solid material? It looks like he's using 3D printed plastic to do it, so it seems like it's possible that we could all have an acoustic levitation device.
Dude, imagine, I mean, if it's assuming that they had enough force to lift you and not break your eardrums or rupture your inner ear.
Right. Well, that's the other question.
With the sound and the amplitudes of how many decibels level is this to require? But imagine a bed where you could just float on sound. And it would just
do you think that you would rupture your eardrums though? That's a good question. The sound waves, are they dangerous?
Is it, because you have that cancellation, but then you have those nodal points in the destructive interference where you have those spikes where they can be extremely high energy. So yeah, I assume it would be really dangerous, but
part of the science that needs to be done, right? And like what specific frequencies are going through it, because it seems that there's some that are null and void, and some that are extremely harmful, and some that can seem and are like rife technologies and stuff like that, the Solfeggios, and so much more to it. But there could potentially be beneficial and positive energies to it. Really needs to.
I was just looking at the Flipper Zero. Have you heard of the Flipper Zero? You know what this is? So everyone's on the internet is like, oh, there's weapons and there's tools and things that are good. And the Flipper Zero, what is it? Is it it's a hacker tool that's evil? No, man, this is the multi-tool for geeks. And I think every one of you and everyone you know should have a Flipper Zero. I mean, for every reason. For one thing, it copies NFC chip cards. You know, so let's say you've got like 36 cards. You could have them all stored here, and you could use it to switch through all of your credit cards or your room key or your key dongle to your car. You could open your garage door. It interacts with every device because it has access to every kind of information. It could be used to replace your TV remote. You can walk into someone's house and all of a sudden clone their remote and use it while you're there. But because of that, people are like, oh, it's evil, because you could use it to open other people's cars. You could use it to open other people's garage doors. You could use it for it's a tool. You know what I mean? People can use it.
Devil's advocate of, the hacker or the negative. So we can't advance technology or society because we can't trust a certain percentage.
Yeah, it's the arcade that's worried that you're going to be copying each other's arcade cards, so the kids will be able to have free games or something. It's like, dude, this could save a lot of lives too, because you have one dongle, that just does everything. And
just give everyone a nuclear warhead. Everything will work itself out.
Mad mutually assured destruction.
I'm a fan of that idea. Honestly, I think mutually assured destruction is a little dangerous, but at the end of the day, nukes aren't as dangerous as people think they are, and they're probably more useful. But also, I wanted to ask about EMF levitation. What do you guys think about the idea of not using sound necessarily, but using high frequency radio waves? Is that safer, or are we going even deeper into the danger zone? What do you think?
Jeremy,
if you're talking, you're muted. I wasn't sure.
Are you going to use? I don't know, because there's no evidence that you can affect gravity with electromagnetic waves right now. It seems to be a function of something else. We believe maybe it's a function of all the electromagnetic frequencies combined, and an additive displacement of or error correction in the whole loop quantum gravity code there's a bunch of different theories. There's loop quantum gravity, G theory, M theory, string theory. There's all these theories that people have come up with since the 70s on gravity. But whether we can do it with electromagnetic radiation has not been shown yet, especially in our labs. And what you can do is you can, create a plasma around the craft, and then, move that flow of that plasma or the air around the craft through ionic wind type propulsion. That's been very well demonstrated and documented. But as far as, negating gravity, it seems that, we don't really understand how gravity works in terms of electromagnetism. There's no like easy language that overlaps it, no equation that we can be like, oh, well, just these frequencies equal, this Gary Stevenson probably did the best work on APEC on his work into high frequency gravitational waves, and some of these higher frequencies which could correspond to where the action is occurring on gravitational, wave interaction with electromagnetic spectrum. But as far as we know, there's no real way to just break that using electromagnetism.
You could cheat with ionic breeze. You could have something that floats like a magnet. You could have something that breaks the magnetic, as long as it's in an ionic field. It has to be in a magnetic field, basically.
There are ways that they can ionize the air around your craft and then pull the air around it using electromagnetic, flux. So it's called MHD, or magnetohydrodynamics. And then there's also a method where you supercavitate the air in front of the craft and sort of blast it out with a directed energy weapon.
Davis, you want Venmo? Exertus at Gmail or at Exertus, I think is what it is. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Like that guy from NASA, Dr. Lake Marabou. He did a lot of research back in the 80s and 90s on lightcraft, and has a book. It's Leik Myrabo, Marabo, and people can look him up.
Oh, yeah. Knows I'm trying. Hold on. There we go. Leikmerabo.
Not Memyrabo.
Well, there we go. Okay. Oh, it was there for a second. I'll just go with that. Okay.
Yeah. And he's a NASA scientist, engineering professor at Rensselaer Polytech. Yep. Yeah, retired in 2011. A lot of the work went classified. Late 90s, early 2000s. There was a Disney special actually called Future Fantastic.
Oh, right. We're talking about the other day. Future Fantastic Archive. If I go to archive, we can find it.
And Future Fantastic talked about this type of craft and showed like animations in the future, like we'd be flying with laser light craft and stuff. And that all disappeared in like 97 or 90, 96, 97. And it was all in the, talked about in the late 90s and on TV as being like the future of this technology, but it all disappeared into black programs. And Lake Marabou can't talk publicly until 2027 when his NDA expires. So we're not able to get much from him other than his book, which was published in Canada. They made like 200 copies, and then they censored the book when he got a contract, and actually bought out all the copies of the book. So like you got a couple people selling back order issues of copies of this book for like $2,000 on Amazon right now. You can look up, and that book is like the
owns X now, right? You know the deal. So Elon Musk was all obsessed with X, and he wanted to start this super company called X, and Google's holding it from him because Google bought X.company, and so X is this company that they created that builds all these weird products just for Google. So then other companies can buy their stuff and work with them. Is the point? It doesn't have to be Google, but they're building like Project Loon, which have lasers on balloons with ammonium. Whatever, right? And they're in the sky, so they're able to keep themselves up there while holding a laser and shooting a laser to another balloon. And they've got all these different ionic systems as well to keep things floating at certain heights. And the technology is there, and they're working with the government. It seems like the math adds up that some of this stuff has already come out through Google, and especially through Project X, or the X company, the Moonshot Factory, as they call it, where they make the weirdest stuff, What does this even mean? What if you could read a plant like you could read a book?
Yeah.
Clearly, we're getting deep into some alchemy stuff. Robots in everyday life. Yeah, Project.
Jeez, yeah. They want robots. All this. Yeah, there's a lot.
One of the projects I like, they do a one that like it's a special solid state microphone that if you rub your fingers near it, it picks up on which direction you're rubbing your fingers. So you can do this thing where you're like up and down, like like give me some money to the waitress fingers, and it'll know your password because you moved your fingers in just the right way. Like it can pick up on sounds across the room, like these spy sounds and everything. And I'm telling you, it's for a consumer product to have a solid state microphone. Like, I don't know. And the self-driving cars, and you see them in Silicon Valley driving each other around. But I bring it up also because of Sergey Brin's $100 billion private fiefdom, which is another kind of Epsteinian thing. He's got a company. And all the money that I think Elon Musk put a bunch of money into it as well. Nicole Shanahan, they create this $100 billion company, holds less than 5% stock, doesn't sit on any of Elon's boards, and may not have followed through with the divestment. Indeed, didn't mention the name, but he created this company called Bayshore. Bayshore has a fascinating history because it's so private, holds $100 billion in assets under advertisement, greater than the endowment managed by Harvard or Yale combined. Bayshore has no website featuring its investment strategies, ultra experienced security personnel, executive chefs, or yacht captains. Right. So this is the company that keeps him going, right? And it's a much more valuable company. It's a Rockefeller kind of thing, right? And so this is, what do you think of these, this idea? I mean, well, how do we get one, right? That's what I want.
Oof. 100 billion, like that's crazy, man.
Yeah, I mean, like the idea of paying taxes is crazy. So having $100 million fiefdom that takes care of you, and the corporation has to sweat the small stuff. The corporations don't get taxed the same way, and then the whole corporation could exist for the explicit purpose of taking care of the board members, right? So,
Jesus,
is that evil, or is that just the right thing for everybody to do? Shouldn't everyone have a corporation created to take care of themselves and their families?
I think the goal is to extract profit. That's the ultimate goal. So if that wouldn't work out, you can't have a corporation for everybody. It's all about funneling money. It's funneling power from one medium to another. Make of that what you will. I think we could have a better corporate system than we do now. I think there is that dimension of it to where it is a little bit evil. Yeah, there's a little bit of evil and greed wrapped up into it. And a lot of companies, I think a common complaint is that they lose a lot of their soul and their insight once they do become incorporated, when they go from being private to incorporated. So there's a lot to be desired there, I think. But yeah, I don't think, I think ideally if, my beliefs are a little bit out there at their core, but I think at the base of our society, we might be healthier if we're closer to nature in varying degrees, depending on how you define nature. But I think if we went back to being a society of just that didn't even have a monetary system, just had a system of exchange of goods and services, pure on the pure base level, without any monetary policy attached to it, I think that would be humans in their most spiritually healthy state. And it's hard to communicate that with people, primarily because we've built up a system of indoctrination that is specifically designed to prevent that. So it's going to be hard to get back to that point. But I think that's humanity at its healthiest.
I mean, as you say that, I'm trying to defeat this paywall with 12foot.io, and it's not letting me. So I guess there's my sign.
Oh, I think Sony. I think I've seen a meme. I don't know if it's true, but apparently Sony, according to the meme, Sony owns a patent that for commercials that will end themselves once you scream the name of the corporation.
Oh my god!
You're saying we're creating
Sony.
McDonald's.
I kind of like that idea.
They're coming.
That might be better. Actually, if someone just screamed Sony at me, I would take it over another PlayStation commercial that just vaguely reminds me that I bought their products. Yeah.
Ray.
Well, I don't know. I think is there anything else you guys want me to cover before I start to show? Okay, this is it. Orlando Brown locked up, details emerge of Disney stars domestic violence arrest. So what do you know about this?
Oh, jeez.
No. Jeremy, you were talking about this.
Apparently this guy is claiming that he was arrested and framed for a crime because he exposed the panda eyes ritual with which is apparently some weird
I hate looking at those photos.
Oh my god, why did I have to look at that? Dang.
I cannot look at that.
It's a satanic ritual abuse that apparently these elite pedophiles do, and he exposed it, and that's why he says he's being targeted.
So gross.
Now it's kind of like
I can't look at that, man.
Very suspicious, right? Like,
right. Yeah, talking about Epstein and all that earlier.
And, more of the Clinton kill list is it called?
Yeah,
I can totally believe it. I mean, it's something that makes a lot of sense to me.
My girlfriend was into this. She showed it to me, and she sent me something with earlier about he had like some episode of this show that he was on he's a former child actor, a former Disney like child actor, and on the show that he was on, he was like had this altercation with the bully, and in it he had like the makeup with the panda eyes on.
Oh wow.
Whoa.
And he didn't know what it was at the time. That he said when he was a young actor, he did this like scene, and he didn't really understand what it was about.
It was like an initiation they put him through.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know what? When Owen Benjamin talks about pandas to me next time, I'll know where to go with that conversation.
Pretty crazy, weird stuff, man. And I was just like, oh God, I'm like utterly disgusted by it, honestly. And
me too, man.
That was something that came up, and I was like, man, and just when you thought the world was dark enough, man, it just.
No, I mean, I've heard when you say it, I've heard of it before, because I remember around 2017 when all this stuff was coming out, there was a bunch of information about that.
This child trafficking charges are trumped up because he was exposing Greta and some other things, like because of his like an exchange with Greta and some of the stuff that he exposed. He says that they filed these fake trafficking charges against him for human trafficking when he's really like on the good side exposing this stuff apparently. But who knows? There's just there's a lot of weird stuff going on with them using false arrests and false charges to take down people.
Right.
Not something that they haven't not like something they haven't done before. It's been done many times. Like an example, I watched a documentary called the Treblinka Guard. I think it's called.
Meanwhile, Kevin Spacey's like, I did it and I'll do it again, which I think is pretty
and you want me to do it.
You want me to do it.
The documentary about Ivan the Terrible, the Treblinka Guard. This guy, he was like just this grandpa from Ohio.
Yeah, I've seen that a couple times now.
They said he looked like this Nazi war criminal, and they charged him and brought him to Israel. They found him guilty, and they executed him, and then they found out afterwards.
Oh my God. That's insane.
That it was just trumped up to start. It was actually Russian KGB had photoshopped this guy's image in there and then used it to as KGB propaganda to drum up like that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a crazy one.
That's insane.
And it involved Ukraine, and what's going on right now, because it was like KGB propaganda to drum up like
they had to get rid of him somehow
against the Ukraine. Well, they just chose this guy who looked like him, and it was a case of mistaken identity. But all these people, like years later, they thought it looked enough like the real guy that they
wow, that's crazy. In Cleveland, stranger settled in Cleveland after World War II, and his wife, a little girl. He became an auto worker, changed his first name from Ivan to John.
Imagine they just retired the grandpa away one day, and they say, "Oh, he looks like this freaking." Nazi.
And everyone thinks it must be true, and even you must think it's true because you don't know any better. Because you're like, "Wow, I heard all these stories about that stuff on TV, so maybe my grandfather was in that, and I never heard anything else." So, wow,
the media was able to play such a key role in just inflaming the issue and inflaming these these Jewish groups. There were anti-Nazi, Jewish groups in the area. They had protesters outside the house, like with signs and stuff. It's a crazy documentary to watch.
Yeah, man.
I had no idea this even took place at all. It was such a big piece of history. But for this little town out there in the middle of nowhere, apparently it was just all they remembered by. All they know is like. It's like their claim to fame, they're 10 minutes of fame, and then they're.
I hate to say it, but Vincent, you brought this up, and it's probably worth mentioning again. Dan Schneider, the psychopath who was finally fired, and I think they hired him back. And did they fire him again? Hopefully,
what?
I don't know. Foot boy, and the foot award. I remember I had a Nickelodeon foot from the '94 Nickelodeon Awards, and it was like
this is almost as shocking as when I heard about Jared from Subway.
This video is worth watching, by the way.
I don't know if these videos should be like on YouTube, but there are videos like that show scenes from, I forget, was it Victorious, where Ariana Grande, they like made her like suck her toes and like and she there's one.
Go back.
That's what I had. This
go
I had
down,
this one.
That's what you had. Right there. The third image, right? The third image. There we go.
Yeah.
That's the one.
What the heck?
Yeah, people are always like, "What happened to the Nickelodeon studios? Why did they shut down the studios?"
Start as marketing from Nickelodeon.
Yeah, but also from Dan Schneider. But you got to remember the Nickelodeon Studios is beautiful, incredible looking building from far away, and then now it's like turned into this boring. Where is it today? It's like this is LA, but if you go to the Orlando 2015 or something, I don't know, something like that, you can see it's not what it used to be or former building. They tore down all the art. This is what it looks like now. It's like a Masonic temple, which is what it always was, but it was painted to look super cool. And you're like, come all around the world to visit Orlando, which is this. Orlando is this like 180 degree, like 1,000% humidity. You need to like have gills just to breathe place. And then telling these kids you're gonna go live happily ever after in this place that they can control. And they find like the lower middle class desperate parents who want to make their kids stars because they don't want to work necessarily, or they want it to be a star themselves is the bigger reason a lot of the time, because that works on them. And yeah, I mean, it's just at this point they've completely, it's called the abandoned Nickelodeon Studios, because they don't want to remember what that building was used for and what it was like, because it's just so friggin' horrible. But guys, we're 2 hours deep. I wanted to say, make sure you're watching the Divulgence podcast, my favorite podcast.
Hold on. To recap first, I just wanted to go over a couple of the super chats there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Shameful. Disney film Operation Deep Freeze, 1954, 55, but in 52 Tomorrowland documents used to make a movie that are photos of Walt in Antarctica. Right. Which is pretty interesting.
Oh.
And it's around the same time that they did a bunch of nature documentaries, including the one where they made up the Lemmings story, which a lot of Americans, and I had teachers that believed that the Lemmings cartoon was real, which is, why would you try to train a bunch of people to believe a lie and see if you could do it? Good job, Disney.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting looking at the Antarctica stuff. King James is related to Solomon and Muhammad. Could he also be related to Akhenaten and Moses? Yes, except the thing is, the Moses story and the Akhenaten story are that he doesn't have his own kids. I mean, Akhenaten, he has his kid, but his kid doesn't end up getting to reproduce unless he did, which would be an awesome, Da Vinci Code kind of rabbit hole in and of itself. But I'm not against it. I'm convinced that Asarsif, the priest, probably was Akhenaten, and then that explains that he was the bastard royalty because he was of the Hyksos,
Right,
etc.
I like that whole theory and history too, because the story of Moses taking the Ark of the Covenant, and it's like it's the power that essentially was the power technology Antiquitech that ran the pyramids. So when Akhenaten left, it was the stealing and removing of that last functional technology within the pyramids, potentially. And it's called Egypt today, as in Egypt, energy gypped or stolen from them. To get into that wordplay a little bit.
That's adorable. I like that one. And Davies for the gang. We are the gang, and you're part of the gang, and we love you, Davies.
Gang.
So I posted Kurt's American Time Machine.
Yeah, let me
see YouTube. Jordan,
let me show you guys the pretty pages as well. But yes, also guys, make sure you go to the links directly, because these are the links to the sites that we're sharing. But Jordan from the Divulgence podcast. And he's got a lot of really interesting episodes here. Diamond's Bondage and the Final Fate of Helena. The Kubrick one is really interesting. A great conversation.
I've been away for the holidays. I got home late, so I'm going to be
posting. Hey, you've been with family. You're a human being.
Yeah, so I'm going to be posting new episodes. Me and Kurt had a good chat a little while back, so I'll be posting that. And
prayers and well wishes for your family there, Jordan.
Oh, thanks, brother. Thanks. Yeah, no, it's good to be back, guys. So it's good to see everyone. And I'll be having lots of good stuff for the New Year's, and I'm excited for all the fun times that we're gonna have in the new year, boys. So,
absolutely, freaking exciting! Yeah, make sure you guys are subscribed to Divulgence,
because it's MKCanada.
Oh, come on, go for it, bud.
If you haven't watched Out for Rip and you want to know what it's like to be Canadian for what is it, 3 minutes and 31 seconds, Out for Rip really does it for me. I might do it for you.
Right, like up above the States, the great landmass
that everybody else hates. That's what they do. The rest of the world. Divulgence podcast, great podcast. Also, Music Alchemy is a new video from Burning Sage Saga. Make sure you're subscribed to Burning Sage Saga, which is Vincent's channel. And this is the new video that you put. Is this a song?
Did I
this is a video about alchemy. I mean, music.
Oh, freaking yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I'm interested in this. So I shared the wrong channel for you, Vincent. Or do you have two channels? Vincent SC? It said you were verified by that. My bad.
Oh, I have two accounts, but one of them is just my
So this is your talking account, not the one with your videos. My bad.
These are really good though. These are videos with
Burning Stage Saga is the right one.
Yeah, what he does is he paints while he explains an interesting historical thing, and he gives you really a deep dive into a lot of things. He did a Santa Claus video with the horns, which is really incredible, watching him paint that while also telling you all these interesting things about Santa Claus. I haven't seen the musical Alchemy. I can't wait. So this looks great. It's actually super short too, so definitely make the time to watch musical Alchemy. Awesome. And then Burning Stage Saga, make sure you're subscribed. And Crypto Alchemist, Bernie's channel. It's growing. Keep it that way. I want to see more people subscribe. We did talk recently.
When YouTube allows it, 2 weeks ago, Dutch Sense shared my channel. I gained 1,000 subscribers in 12 hours, and they deleted 1,000 subscribers.
Wow, that's the worst.
It was as if a million people just cried out and were suddenly silenced. Yeah.
Just crazy. And like Jeremy Reese, his alien scientist channel, he's stuck at 109,000 subscribers, .000, literally to the single digit for over 2 years now. They have not let Jeremy.
Right. And he was on the Timcast and everything like that. And I felt like at that time, it's like, okay, obviously you can't stop it now. How are you going to stop them? And it's interesting the kind of games that they've played on Jeremy. I know that they're messing with him right now over.
I believe it's 2 years since I was on Timcast. I just reached out to Ian Crossland, and I'm like, dude, you got to get me on there again. And
I mean, the work you're doing is so friggin' incredible, and you're constantly investigating everything, and you're critically analyzing stuff that people are like, woo, what do I do? What do I look at? This is alien. I don't know. And you're like, well, is it? Might not be. It actually sounds to me more like this other article. And that's important stuff.
Like 10 sources, and what I won't do is give conclusions. I just give like, oh, this is the research I've done, and you can draw your own conclusions, because I hate like trying to tell people what to think, and I'm not about that, because it's like Bob Lazar brought me into this, even though I've
brought me right out.
And like I think like he turns a lot of BS like a lot of PhDs and a lot of like real scientists away once they dig into it. I think if they can only look at some of the research that I've dug up on all this stuff, but even that, like Disney Channel has this. I was looking on Disney Plus last night for more UFO stuff, and there's a thing on Area 51 that's on Disney Plus.
I just saw that, right? I was like, oh my god, I can't believe they just did that.
And they talk about the wallpaper and Project Rainbow and the invisibility and stealth program out there, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. This is great.
Yeah, good job, Disney. Got to give him credit sometimes. Credit where credit's due. But make sure you're also subscribed to his Twitter, because his Twitter is happening. And I feel like more and more, I just go follow what you post a new thing. I'll try to share it, because UAP Technologies declassified history of UAP Technologies videos that he's got. He's constantly going through hundreds of different actual documents.
So all the mainstream, all Joe Rogan's done is interview this one UFO scientist named Bob Lazar, man. I have interviewed dozens of real guys that worked on this stuff for aerospace.
And gone so far as doing the research for 2 decades and building a website called Bob Lazar.
Not just a website, dude. You guys have to see his
info.
The lab he built, the kind of stuff that Jeremy builds. He's actually a serious. He's like an architect, construction guy who can build the stuff he's thinking about, which a lot of scientists can't. So he's actually testing this stuff.
He's an engineer and a builder.
Right.
Jeremy, are you free tomorrow night? Can we do a real science multi-stream together, or maybe Saturday?
Tomorrow night, maybe like late after they go to bed, if I still have any energy, like maybe like 11 or 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Yeah, so that'd be like 9 or 10 p.m. my time. If we'll check in with you and see it. Hopefully you can. If not, we'll try for Saturday or Sunday, but it would be awesome to get a real science episode multi-stream done.
Wanted to remember to also remind people that this ARCS IV Explorer is the best semantic search engine. It's an AI search engine for looking at journals and text. So I just put in UAP here, and it finds the most relevant and interesting journals about this, and it gives you pretty good surmise, and it's pretty quick to get to it. So if you're interested in science and you want to get the best access to data, and you don't want to use Google or DuckDuckGo, ARCS IV Explorer is amazing. It's a really useful tool. And then, make sure you subscribe to Alien Scientist. Push him above the 110K. Make sure that he's getting all the support he can get. And if you like music, the only music you ever need to listen to ever again is American Time Machine, the best music.
Time Machine.
Before that, for thousands of years, humans just tried to make music, and they would argue about it, and they had no idea how to do it right. And some people were like, well, I think you should be like, dun, 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 dun. And other people were like, da, 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 da. And then finally Kurt came around, and he was just like,
yes.
Wow, wow. And it was just, he invented rock and roll, and he went back in time, and he saved the as Bill and Ted. No, but American Time Machine is the greatest music. So seriously, listen to this album. I'm not kidding. I love this stuff. Kurt, we love you.
Kurt, we love
Thank you.
I think I covered it all. That wasn't bad. And everyone else, make sure you buy my merchandise. Thank
Philip,
you.
do you have any site or
Oh, Philip.
No, I have absolutely nothing to advertise. Don't worry about it. Yet.
Dude, we're gonna get Philip grifting maple syrup, and I'm gonna take a cut. But in the meantime,
That's right.
maybe maple wine or something like that. We'll do something cool. But also, you can talk to Philip if you come to the Facebook. You go to charterynova.com, get to the Discord, and I will connect you with Philip directly. And we'll have further conversations to be had. Dude, and follow your dreams and stay Canadian. Love you all.
Love you guys. Take care.
Krigler coffee is amazing.
Oh, and drink Krigler coffee. What? Of course. Yeah, drink Krigler coffee. If you drink coffee, drink Krigler
maple
coffee.
syrup and donuts, eh?
Well, if you're watching videos,
God.
watch an alien scientist video while listening to Vincent paint a painting, while drinking Krigler coffee, while American Time Machine's playing in the background, while wearing my merchandise, and we're all going to have a good time. Okay? Yeah. And Jordan, we're going to have this episode up on your channel next week. Okay. I love you guys.
Love you guys. Peace, love.
Canada is a country. Waves of people came to this country, were welcomed by the folks who have lived here for millennia, the First Nation. And built this society with waves of people fleeing religious persecution, fleeing tyranny, fleeing to try and build a better life for themselves here than they had back home. Whether it's folks fleeing from world wars or fleeing from civil wars, these people always want the same thing: to be able to live in peace, to raise their families, to create a better future for themselves and their communities. And that is what generations created this extraordinary diverse society we have. Now, Canada remains one of the only countries in the world where citizens are, by and large, positively inclined. And one of the reasons we are that way is because Canadians have confidence in our